a man unexpectedly experiences a rebirth. He finds himself back in his high school years. The first thing he decides to do is to tell his parents. He wants to become a Taoist monk. Even though his kind-hearted parents punish him severely, their reaction doesn't shake his unwavering determination to pursue the path of a Taoist monk. His name is Wang Shang. At just 17 years old, he already has a chiseled 8-pack, and he sticks to a daily routine of completing 1,000 push-ups. Logically speaking, someone his age would typically stay home playing video games, or grab some snacks to pass the time. But he couldn't afford to, because he was someone who had been reborn, and knew that before long, the rocket featured in the news would bring something back from the moon that would revive the long-dormant spiritual energy after thousands of years, transforming Earth into an era where everyone practices cultivation. In his previous life, he was merely an insignificant lone cultivator. It wasn't until he turned 31 that he got caught in a clash between two gangs fighting over territory, and ended up dying in a baffling and inexplicable way. He didn't even know who had killed him. Fortunately, the heavens granted him a chance to be reborn. In this life, he refuses to die in a muddled and aimless manner again. He is determined to make something remarkable of himself. During this period of time, relying on the cultivation technique he acquired in his previous life, he slightly enhanced his physical condition, managed to develop an 8-pack of abs. But unfortunately, the cultivation technique was incomplete. Now he has reached a bottleneck. The only way to break through is to find a mentor, and that is to formally seek a teacher. So he decisively put on his clothes and walked into the living room, spoke with his parents, and shared his idea of going to Mount Wudong to become a Taoist priest. The kind and understanding parents were very supportive of his ideas. They simply beat him until he was bruised and swollen, then let him go. Even though the price he paid was rather harsh, Wang Sheng finally made his way to Wudong Mountain to seek a master. In his previous life, Wudong Mountain held a significant position among the top experts of the immortal Tao. Unfortunately, he never managed to become a disciple there. This time, he was determined to seize the opportunity. But after struggling to climb the mountain with great effort, when he finally arrived at the Purple Cloud Palace, but he was informed by a young Taoist who was playing on his phone that the Taoist priest Gao Shishing he was looking for was not in the mountain. He had gone abroad for a performance, and it seemed unlikely he would return in the coming months. Wang Shang was left completely stunned. Originally, the Taoist priest Gao Shishing, whom he intended to seek out, was destined to rank among the top 30 experts on the future heavenly list. Even before the revival of spiritual energy in the world, he was already considered a representative of Wudong martial arts. But now, he and a few other Taoist priests were all absent. Wang Shang could only pick up his suitcase in disappointment, planning to head down the mountain and find another sect for cultivating immortality, to seek a master and learn new skills. Just then, a voice suddenly came from a nearby stall. "Young man, at your age, you should focus on studying properly. Don't get misled by those stories in novels. If you really want to learn martial arts, I can recommend some authentic Wudong martial arts manuals for you. The wholesale price is only 300 per book. These are the genuine heritage of Wudong's martial arts traditions. It will absolutely allow you to stand unrivaled in the world, to dominate the universe with confidence and ease. If you, young practitioner, have any needs regarding inner strength, you can also join the Rapid Inner Energy Enhancement class I personally teach." Looking at the unkempt middle-aged Taoist in front of him, who was enthusiastically promoting his teachings, Wang Sheng trembled with excitement all over. Without a moment of hesitation, he chose to become his disciple, expressing his willingness to follow the Taoist in pursuit of immortality and enlightenment, simply because he recognized the identity of this Taoist. He is none other than the silent Taoist master Qingyanzi. In his past life, he was firmly ranked among the top 5 cultivators. This time, it's undeniably striking a stroke of good luck. However, Qing Lianzi felt a bit helpless hearing his words. "Kiddo, if you had said you came to learn martial arts, that might have sounded more reasonable. Talking about cultivating immortality and following the Tao with every word you say. Have you ever seen anyone who can actually perform magic yet?" Wang Sheng thought this was Qing Lianzi testing him. He immediately began speaking non-stop. "A disciple believes that the Tao is a kind of spirit. It represents different understandings of the universe and nature. I couldn't find the master I wanted to follow at Wudong Mountain. But the moment I saw you, I knew right away that you were no ordinary person." Hearing this, Qing Yanzi thought the matter would never end. He quickly interrupted him. "Stop there, kid, you're quite amusing. Talking endlessly about the Tao and being so picky about choosing a master. At Wudong Mountain, I'm merely a nominal member. Over the years, I've only taken in one apprentice. I haven't paid much attention to him on a regular basis. Are you sure you want to take me as your master? Besides, you're the one insisting on becoming my disciple. Do your parents know about this?" Wang Sheng quickly explained that his parents came with him. "Master, I genuinely wish to follow you in cultivation." Qing Yanzi listened to this. Only then did he confirm that Wang Sheng wasn't just overly influenced by novels or movies. Had just run away from home. So he told Wang Sheng to answer 3 questions for him. "If your answers satisfy me, then I'll let your parents come and talk to me." Afterwards, Qing Lianzi posed 2 questions, both of which were related to the Tao. Wang Sheng answered them all fluently. But when it came to the 3rd question, Qing Lianzi suddenly revealed a sly and mischievous smile, presented Wang Sheng with a life-or-death dilemma. "If you decide to take me as your mentor, and both your father and I were drowning in a river, who would you choose to save first?" Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng was completely stunned on the spot, thinking to himself, if he saves his mentor first, he would be considered unfilial to his parents. There is a saying in the path of Taoism: a person who is unfilial cannot be considered a true human being. Save the parents first. That would mean placing the master a step lower. The saying goes, a master is like one's parents. It's nothing but being insincere. After much hesitation, Wang Sheng eventually chose to say, "Save my dad." But what he never expected was, he actually succeeded in the end. Not only that, Qing Yanzi even managed to persuade his parents. He was left to stay at Wudong Mountain. But Qing Yanzi still needed to inform Wang Sheng. "Right now, you are only my apprentice in training. After the assessment period is over, I will decide whether to officially accept you as my disciple. This is where I live. Usually, it's just me and your senior sister here. During this period, you can stay here with us for now." Wang Sheng followed behind, gasping for air, speaking at the same time. Yes, and soon they arrived at the residence. Qing Yanzi introduced Wang Sheng to his senior sister Mu Wanxian. When Wang Sheng heard this name, he froze for a moment, then immediately lost his composure. He became overwhelmingly excited. All because of this senior sister, Mu Wanxian. In a previous life, she was known as the Silent Fairy, and as the Silent Taoist Master. Qing Lianzi ranked among the top 10 experts on the heavenly list. Now he has these 2 powerful figures as his protectors. From now on, won't he dominate wherever he goes? Seeing Wang Sheng standing to the side grinning foolishly at thin air, senior sister Mu Wanxian curiously asked the master, "Is there something wrong with his brain?" Qing Lianzi stayed silent for a moment, but quickly came to terms with it. After all, only an unusual child would behave this way. Who would willingly send someone to the mountains to endure hardships? You are the senior sister in this role. In the future, make sure to look after your junior brother more. Mu Wanxian nodded slightly. Afterwards, the group entered the house. Qing Lianzi once again solemnly reminded Wang Sheng, "Though you address me as master, there will still be a period of evaluation before the teachings officially begin. You need to mentally prepare yourself. If you cannot endure it, I won't insist on keeping you on the mountain either." You know, Wang Sheng immediately straightened his back. He expressed that as long as it wasn't the master driving the disciple off the mountain, the disciple wouldn't give up no matter what. After that, Qing Yanzi assigned him to first grind 2 bags of wheat into flour. Wang Sheng took off his jacket and got straight to work. He started by putting in a handful of wheat, then began turning the millstone. Step by step, he worked on it. This composed and calm demeanor was also noticed by Qing Lianzi. Soon, sunlight broke through the clouds and shone down, dispersing the chill in the surroundings. Qing Lianzi called Mu Wanxian to come out and practice martial arts. The 2 of them sat cross-legged and began their cultivation. A swirl of spiritual energy enveloped them. This sight left Wang Sheng feeling deeply envious. Indeed, even with the constant lack of natural spiritual energy, the legacy of cultivation has never been severed. Even if it's just the process of calming the mind and focusing, this kind of cultivation, built up over years, the accumulation itself becomes incredibly formidable. No wonder that after the resurgence of world energy, these cultivators advanced far faster than ordinary people. Thinking of this, Wang Shang became even more determined to work harder, hoping that once he passed the initiation of magical power, his master would surely teach him some cultivation techniques. After all, there's always an advantage under the shade of a big tree. But in the end, nothing is more important than one's own abilities. Even if he can't surpass his senior sister, he shouldn't end up doing poorly in the future. For now, it's better to stay grounded and take things step by step. Witnessing this scene, the young man who was meditating nodded in satisfaction. Soon, the time reached noon. Wang Shang finally finished grinding the 2 bags of flour, but he was completely exhausted, even though he had already been doing physical training for several months. After all, he had never done such tough physical labor since childhood. Trying it for the first time was indeed a bit challenging for him. At that moment, his senior sister, Mu Wanxian, thoughtfully brought him a bowl of water. Wang Shang quickly took it and thanked his senior sister. After taking a short break, Xing Lianzi arranged a room for him, and mentioned that her own room was in the adjoining wing, saying he could come to her anytime if he needed anything. She also suggested visiting her parents at the foot of the mountain after a nap, to put their minds at ease. After finishing his words, Xing Lianzi gracefully turned and left. However, it wasn't long before he returned once again. He then looked at Mu Wanxian, who was engrossed in playing snake. He waved his hand in his direction, gesturing for him to come over for a moment. The two of them leaned their heads into the room. They saw Wang Shang meditating with great focus. Only then did they pull their heads back with satisfaction. Xing Lianzi couldn't help but praise. "Look at your junior brother, he really seems to be doing it properly." But unexpectedly, in the next moment, a loud bang suddenly came from inside the room, followed by the sound of heavy, labored breathing. It turned out Wang Shang had fallen asleep while meditating. Both the master and disciple couldn't help but burst into laughter. This is truly something worth praising. A man. Originally, he was just a minor robe cultivator during the era of spiritual energy revival. Unexpectedly, he was reborn by chance. Returning to the time before the spiritual energy revival, he successfully became a disciple of Taoist Xing Lianzi, who would rank among the top 5 on the future heavenly rankings. His master also had a stunning senior sister who ranked in the top 10 on the heavenly rankings as a companion. Wouldn't he dominate the world from now on? Just a moment ago, Wang Shang went down the mountain to inform his parents that he was safe. Then he took the bedding and returned to the mountain. However, what puzzled him was this. Even though there was a mountain spring providing water for them to use, why did the master still ask him to specifically go down the mountain and buy 2 cases of the cheapest bottled water? But Wang Shang didn't think much about it. He figured the master's actions must have a deeper meaning. All he needed to do was follow the instructions. Yet when he returned to his residence, he suddenly froze in place like a statue. In disbelief, he asked his master what he was doing. At that moment, he saw Xing Lianzi holding a calligraphy brush, writing on those bottles of mineral water. After finishing, the cheapest bottle of mineral water had turned into Wudong Mountain sacred water. Wang Shang stood there, completely dumbfounded. After a while, Xing Lianzi finally noticed him. He proudly began introducing his side business. This was specifically designed for those devotees seeking blessings. Each bottle is priced between 20 and 100. Over 10 bottles are sold every day. This left Wang Shang feeling the image of his master in a certain aspect completely collapsed. Then Xing Lianzi called Wang Shang to the backyard. He wanted to demonstrate a set of martial arts moves, treating it as a welcome gift for Wang Shang's initiation. Wang Shang's face lit up with excitement. "I didn't expect to be able to start practicing so soon." The two of them quickly made their way to the backyard. After Xing Lianzi demonstrated a set of boxing techniques, he stood aside to guide Wang Shang through the practice. After completing the entire boxing routine, Wang Shang felt heat surging through his whole body. It seemed as if a stream of energy was flowing within him. Although this set of boxing techniques taught by the master was simple, it was imbued with a hidden essence of Tao. Wang Shang hadn't expected it either. The moment he stepped through the door, he was surprised to immediately learn such an intricate martial art technique. This filled him with immense joy, and he decided to master this set of techniques by the end of the day. So without even realizing it, Wang Shang practiced all the way until night fell. But when he turned his head, he noticed that his senior sister had fallen asleep leaning against the doorway. Feeling helpless, Wang Shang had no choice but to walk over and wake her up. Let her go back to bed and get some rest. Mu Wanxian mumbled drowsily in response, then headed straight into the house. Watching his senior sister's figure as she walked away, Wang Shang recalled what their master had mentioned before, that his senior sister had suffered from a severe illness during childhood, which left her with a tendency to be less talkative. As her junior brother, he resolved to take good care of his senior sister from now on. But as he kept thinking about it, a shirt suddenly landed on her head. She appeared to be in a dazed and groggy state. She was about to remove the last piece of clothing, revealing a scene that one should avoid looking at. Wang Shang quickly shut his eyes. He returned the clothes to his senior sister, and suggested she change inside the room instead. He said goodnight, and then shut the door with a bang. Afterwards, Wang Shang went back to his own room. Still, with a flushed face, he couldn't stop replaying what had just happened in his mind. He hadn't expected this at all. His senior sister was completely unguarded in front of him, but as a soon-to-be junior brother, he couldn't take advantage of her. Yet the current version of his senior sister was nothing like the image of the silent fairy he remembered from his past life. The difference was simply too striking. At that moment, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his arm. It seemed to be caused by the boxing practice earlier in the day. Indeed, today's formal training was proving far from easy. Yet Wang Shang showed not the slightest sign of discouragement. Instead, he planned to meditate for a while before going to sleep. But as soon as he sat cross-legged and got into a meditative posture, his eyelids couldn't help but grow heavy, and he simply fell asleep on the spot. After an unknown amount of time had passed, in a haze, he seemed to see someone standing before him, asking if he had woken up. Wang Shang rubbed his eyes, and saw who the person was. He suddenly shuddered and sat up straight. It turned out that his master, Qing Yanzi, had arrived. Qing Yanzi told Wang Shang to lie down and rest peacefully. The reason he came so late was that Wang Shang had joined the sect a bit later. His meridians were blocked, and his body was also somewhat overly stiff. So Qing Yanzi planned to help Wang Shang loosen his bones and activate his meridians. As he spoke, Qing Yanzi placed both hands on Wang Shang's abdomen. Wang Shang could feel the palms of his master's hands. It seemed to carry a sensation of alternating warmth and coolness. This must be the internal energy that martial artists have always pursued. At present, the Earth's vital energy has not yet been restored. Master achieved this accomplishment through years of arduous training since childhood. It must have taken an incredible amount of hard work. Now, Master is actually using the hard-earned internal energy to help him stimulate and activate his meridians. How could he not be deeply moved by this? Since that is the case, then he absolutely couldn't let his master down. So the next morning, Wang Shang got up early to practice his skills. It was unclear if it was just psychological, but ever since waking up, Wang Shang felt as light as a feather, and his energy seemed noticeably better than the day before. Qing Lianzi observed this and gave a slight approving nod. Not bad at all, quite promising. Yesterday was merely to let you get accustomed to it. Today, you won't be given much time to rest. Be prepared mentally. Hearing this, Wang Shang became even more motivated. Although the master mentioned enhancing his magical power, he never assigned him tasks that exceeded his limits. It was nothing more than pushing him to exhaust his physical strength, allowing him to experience a profound sense of fatigue. The master would also help him activate his energy channels every 3 days. Because of this, the residual energy from the master remained within his body. After 2 or 3 sessions, he was already able to sense the approximate locations of the meridians throughout his body. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Wang Shang also attempted to practice the basic cultivation technique he had learned in his past life. Even though it still didn't yield much effect, the frequency and quality of expelling impurities from his body had noticeably improved. The only slight drawback was, the impurities had such a strong odor that his senior sister covered her nose in disgust, quickly fled from his room. However, Qing Yanzi merely smiled, believed that Wang Shang truly showed great potential. In no time, a month had passed. Qing Yanzi summoned Wang Shang to his side, told him that he had already been here for a month. The initial phase of entry-level magic had now passed, and you have performed quite well. I will invite a senior Taoist mentor to come and act as a witness, passing down the teachings and imparting the law to you. Tomorrow morning, you should rise early to purify yourself with incense and bathing. By noon, you will officially be initiated. The following day at midday, Qing Lianzi invited Uncle Master Li to bear witness, asking Wang Shang to kneel before the portrait of the founder. Only then did the formal transmission begin. Since you have entered the sect, you must seek a distinguished master to inherit the lineage of our sect. It was passed down from the revered master Lu Dongbin. Upon entering the sect, you belong to the generation marked by the character you. Your senior sister's Taoist title is silent speech. When you learned about it, you considered it a subject of criticism. Today, I bestow upon you a scripture left by the pure Yang immortal of our sect. You are given half a month to make a copy of it. This will serve as the foundation for your future cultivation. You must adhere to the teachings in this scripture. Wang Shang respectfully received the scripture. His face lit up with joy as he sincerely thanked his master for passing down the teachings. Li Chengqing mentioned that he was going to accompany Uncle Li for a meal. He instructed Wang Shang and the others to clean up the area thoroughly. As soon as the two left, Wang Shang habitually asked his senior sister if she wanted to grab some snacks. But when he turned his head, he realized his senior sister had already disappeared. Turns out she was already enjoying the food. This made Wang Shang sigh unconsciously. His senior sister's movement skills were truly extraordinary. She truly lived up to her reputation as a top 10 master on the heavenly ranking. But seeing his senior sister like this, it's truly difficult to associate that image with the silent fairy. To connect them together. After finishing the snacks, Wang Shang began flipping through the scripture his master had given him. At that moment, his senior sister suddenly tapped him on the shoulder. She took out a grape and was about to feed it to him. As Wang Shang turned his head, the grape ended up in his mouth. He chuckled and said thank you to his senior sister. Afterward, Mu Wanxian sat down on the chair, eating grapes, listening to Wang recite scriptures. Couldn't help but think of the master's earlier words, telling him to take good care of his junior brother. Decided to put in more effort to care for his junior brother in the future. What kind of divine master is this? Actually asked the junior disciple to warm the senior sister's bed just because the weather turned cold. And even justified it by saying that two people sleeping in one room would make it a little warmer. Moreover, the senior sister appeared to be genuinely delighted. After completing the ceremony to formally acknowledge the master-disciple relationship, Qin Yanzi began imparting the methods of cultivating the Tao, along with scriptures and other related knowledge to Wang Shang, sharing everything he knew without reservation. Among these teachings were naturally the renowned martial techniques of the current Taoist sects. Since Wang Shang had already been a disciple for 2 months, Qin Yanzi instructed Mu Wanxian to assess his capabilities. To be precise, martial cultivation is a practice focused on safeguarding the path of spiritual cultivation. During the time when the world's spiritual energy was still abundant, cultivators, apart from seeking truth through their practices, must also comprehend the principles of the Great Path and train in various techniques and skills to protect themselves while pursuing the ultimate truth, and to carry out acts of righteousness through their knowledge, such as the arts of Qimeng Duanjia, the duality of yin and yang, the 8 trigrams, grand formations, alchemy, and artifact crafting. These techniques once basked in glory during their time. But unfortunately, as Earth's spiritual energy gradually depleted over time, it became impossible to accomplish great feats without sufficient resources. Taoist techniques have essentially become mere formalities. Practitioners of Taoism lost their vitality. To ensure their protection, they developed the combative aspects of Taoist techniques to their fullest potential. This is how martial cultivation originated. It is also referred to as Taoist martial arts. After a prolonged sparring session with his senior sister, Wang Shang was utterly defeated to the point of withdrawal. He even started questioning the meaning of his life. Despite all the painstaking effort he had put into training, even the hem of senior sister's robe is completely out of reach. Could the gap between me and a future powerhouse really be this vast? With a trembling voice, Wang Shang asked senior sister, if I ever get bullied in the future, you must stand up for me and help me regain my dignity. Senior sister gave a gentle nod with a smile. At that moment, Master Qing Lianzi called Wang Sheng over. Today, he intended to teach Wang Sheng a set of skills that could rival those of senior sister. Mu Wanchuan's mastery of the Tai Chi and Bagua techniques is unparalleled. This sword formation is known as the 7-star sword formation. It emphasizes transitions in body techniques. It focuses on agile footwork and swift movements. When fully mastered, it reaches the pinnacle of perfection. The sword becomes a part of the mind, unseen yet present. The North Star's 0 form eradicates all demons and monsters. Then, a subtle shift is seen as Qing Lianzi lightly taps the ground with their toes. This creates countless afterimages in an instant. Their steps align with the 7 stars as if treading upon them. The rotation never ceases. At last, the 7 swords merged into one. All their power converged at a single point. Wang Shang was utterly shocked after witnessing this. It turned out to be the profound essence of the 7 sword shadows merging as one. This was driven by the reversal of the world's elemental energy. But hasn't the world's elemental energy yet to recover? How exactly did Master manage to accomplish this? While Wang Shang was still caught in his thoughts, during his momentary daze, Qing Yanzi had already demonstrated the sword technique. He placed the tree branch into his hand, saying that if you practice this sword technique and achieve moderate mastery within 3 years, it would already indicate exceptional talent. There's no need to rush. Start by mastering the basic moves and counters first. Wang Shang nodded earnestly with great focus. I will never let down the effort and dedication of my master. As long as I strive forward with determination, relentlessly pursuing without giving up. One day, I'll manage to touch the hem of senior sister's robe. When Qing Lianzi heard his lack of ambition, she immediately flicked his forehead as a reprimand. Look at how hopeless you are. Wang Shang covered his head and chuckled foolishly. This is just a short-term goal. Right now, I'm far behind senior sister. But I definitely don't want to stay behind her forever. After all, with such an adorable senior sister, she's naturally someone to be protected. Hearing this, Qing Lianzi also gave a faint smile. What you said now sounds much better. Afterwards, Wang Shang continued practicing the 7-star sword formation. In his previous life of over 40 years, with the experience he had gained from exploring the path of cultivation on his own, in just a single afternoon, he had already memorized nearly half of the entire sword technique. Yet he showed no sign of wanting to relax even a bit. In his previous life, he was frustrated because he lacked a systematic cultivation method, and felt troubled by it. But in this life, everything he needs is right in front of him. If he doesn't work hard now, it would truly feel like he's wasting this chance at rebirth. Besides, compared to his senior sister, he still has a long way to go. So he decided to train with everything he's got and progress quickly. Autumn fades away as winter quietly sets in. Without realizing it, Wang Shang has already been living in the mountains for half a year. During this period of time spent together, his understanding of his master and senior sister has grown deeper and deeper. He increasingly feels. He felt like a simple woodcutter who accidentally stumbled into a realm of immortals. It was as if he had unknowingly wandered into a sanctuary of divine beings. Because both his master and senior sister were truly extraordinary prodigies. His senior sister had a heart of pure clarity. Her mind was utterly free of any distractions or impurities. The profound understanding of the Tao seems to be deeply ingrained in his very being. If one were to describe someone like him, an ordinary person, he can only follow the Tao but not truly practice it. Whereas his senior sister is someone who walks the earth alongside the Tao itself. However, this senior sister seems to lack understanding of matters between men and women. She doesn't grasp why there should be differences between the two genders. This leaves him feeling quite troubled. But compared to his senior sister, his master, Qing Lianzi, is undeniably even more extraordinary. Whether it's about discussing scriptures, talismans, and weapons, or capturing ghosts, expelling evil spirits, and practicing alchemy and medicine, he is skilled in every single field. Wang Shang still couldn't figure out how his master managed to learn so many skills within just a short 40 years of life. With such an extraordinary master and senior sister above him, Wang Shang, during this period of time, spent every day meditating and cultivating, and studying Taoist scriptures, listening to the master's teachings. All remaining time and energy were devoted to practicing the 7-star sword formation. In just half a year, he had already become completely familiar with the 7-star sword formation. Yet in front of his senior sister, he still felt he had no right to feel any sense of pride. What he could do now was to keep pushing himself relentlessly, striving to catch up with his senior sister's pace, and not let himself fall too far behind. As for Qing Yanzi, he noticed that Wang Shang had managed to practice the 7-star sword formation to a decent level within just half a year, and felt deeply gratified, believing that Wang Shang's potential was likely even greater than he had initially anticipated. However, with the weather now turning colder, the falling snow was not as chilling as the melting snow, so Qing Yanzi suggested that Wang Shang should begin tonight. Why not share the same room with your senior sister? That way, it would be a bit warmer. Wang Sheng quickly blushed and waved his hand at his master. It's better to let senior sister stay there instead. I'll be fine. However, Qing Lianzi had a mischievous grin on her face. She leaned in closer to him. Could it be that you even have thoughts about your senior sister? Wang Sheng gave an awkward smile. How could that be? Am I that kind of person? Qing Lianzi rested his hand on his shoulder and said earnestly to keep things simple. Young man, this can also be seen as a test of your character. Oh, and remember to replace the old blankets for you and your senior sister. His blanket has been used for 7 or 8 years. It's long past the point of keeping out the cold. Wang Sheng looked entirely helpless. But when night came, he still had to stay in the same room with his senior sister, and ended up curling up alone under the blanket. I can't figure out what the master means. Could it be that he wants to match him with the senior sister? At that moment, the senior sister suddenly reached out and poked his cheek. Wang Sheng turned his head and saw the senior sister. She had a look as if saying junior brother is ignoring me, and wore an expression of feeling upset like a child. It seems the senior sister is quite eager for him to move in. In that case, his reaction does seem a bit inappropriate. So Wang Sheng awkwardly expressed, I'm just feeling a little embarrassed. At that moment, senior sister seemed to suddenly think of something. Then she took out a chessboard. She was ready to play a game with Wang Sheng. It was only when they started playing Gamoku that Wang Sheng realized he had misunderstood. Senior sister was as pure as a blank sheet of paper. She had absolutely no concept of such things, but he still felt the need to remind her. They could only play for half an hour. Otherwise, they would definitely be drowsy all day tomorrow, and the master would scold them again. Before long, the Lantern Festival arrived on the 15th day of the first lunar month. On this day, Wang Sheng was practicing his swordsmanship in the courtyard. During this period, he had the guidance of a renowned teacher by his side. He gained profound insights and understanding. His progress far surpassed what he had achieved in his previous life. Based on his memories from his past life, today was likely the day when the essence of vitality would awaken. Thus, he continued practicing his sword in the courtyard, while keeping a close watch on the changes in the spiritual energy of the world. He was ready to inform his master and senior sister immediately. Don't let them miss out on this opportunity. At that moment, the master and disciple who were eating rice dumplings suddenly paused their actions. Qing Lianzi widened his eyes abruptly. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is finally arriving. The revival of spiritual energy has begun. The earth is about to enter an era where everyone can cultivate immortality. The master and disciple on Wudong Mountain were the first to sense the shift in spiritual energy. Just as Wang Sheng turned his head, just as he was about to remind the master and senior sister, Qing Lianzi suddenly appeared behind him, urging him to remain silent and to meditate while practicing the sect's core technique, so as not to miss this rare opportunity. Your senior sister's meridians are now completely clear, and she has already entered a state of deep meditation. I will lend you a hand to help you unblock all the meridians in your body. Wang Sheng was deeply moved by this gesture. You have to understand. The first trace of spiritual energy reawakened after 1,000 years of silence is truly priceless for anyone pursuing the path of cultivation. Missing it could mean never having such an opportunity again in this lifetime. But even in such a situation, the master still cared about the blocked meridians of his young disciple that had not yet been fully opened. Such kindness, how could he ever repay it in the future? With the assistance of the Qinglian seed, it didn't take long for Wang Sheng's meridians throughout his body to be fully opened, allowing the circulation of energy through his body at a speed that was now dozens of times faster than before. This must be the enhancement brought by the essence of heaven and earth that elevates the capabilities of those who practice cultivation. It seems that after today, Earth is about to enter a new era. Moments later, Wang Sheng concluded his cultivation session and opened his eyes. He noticed that the senior sister was looking at him with a concerned expression. Wang Sheng instinctively wanted to speak and ask his senior sister, "Have you finished teasing me?" But he was interrupted by his senior sister, who raised her hand and pointed toward the direction of their master, Qing Lianzi. Looking over at Qing Lianzi's position, a beam of light shot straight into the sky. Qing Lianzi was in the process of breaking through, and it was a consecutive breakthrough of 4 levels. Wang Sheng's face lit up with excitement. it became clear that the master had already entered the stage of gathering spiritual focus. He is about to break through to the void core stage. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The primordial essence of heaven and earth is indeed remarkable. But in the end, it is merely a bit more refined. Ordinary cultivators simply cannot rely on him to break through their realms. Those who can rely on him to achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation levels are clearly individuals who have cultivated for decades, only to unleash their accumulated potential today. The master's foundation is truly astonishing. While the senior sister possesses extraordinary talent, advancement goes without saying. Even his cultivation level has reached new heights. In just a single night, the true essence within his body became several times more refined. The gains surpassed years of hard work from his previous life. Thanks to the stimulation of the true essence within him, his understanding of the 7-star sword formation had also entered another realm of mastery. The wooden sword he used for practice now could no longer withstand his true essence and the shadows of his sword. As for the master, ever since the primordial energy of heaven and earth awakened, he had been in a deep meditative state. It wasn't until 3 days later that the master finally emerged from his retreat. After taking some time to rest, the master began to recount the world of cultivation from 1,000 years ago, while also warning them that the era was about to change. Chaos inevitably followed. As practitioners of the Tao, it was naturally their duty to eradicate evil and uphold the righteous path. And after a brief period of explanation, the lives of the master and his 2 disciples once again returned to their previous tranquility. Everything seemed largely unchanged, but with the enhancement of their true essence, they had genuinely attained cultivation. Wang Shang, moreover, made significant progress shortly thereafter, mastered the 7-star sword formation to a proficient level, pierced through the wall using just a wooden sword. Seeing this, King Lianzi felt deeply gratified. However, the issue Wang Shang faces now is, this doesn't count as damaging Wudong Mountain's property, does it? King Lianzi smiled and said it doesn't. It doesn't take long. Seasons come and go. Time passes unnoticed in the mountains. Wang Shang has already spent 3 years on Wudong Mountain. Yet today, the once uneventful days of cultivation were momentarily disrupted by the arrival of a Taoist priest. And this visitor was none other than Uncle Li, who had been present as a witness during the time he received his initiation. It turns out that ever since the resurgence of spiritual energy, most sects have reclaimed their legacies, naturally unwilling to remain in obscurity. Recently, over 20 renowned major sects have surfaced, planning to hold a gathering on Mount Mao to get a better understanding of each other's strengths. It was precisely because of this gathering that Uncle Master Li Shiwu came to visit, to seek help from senior brother Qing Yanzi. On this matter, Li Shiwu felt quite helpless. From the sect leader to the 2 senior uncles, they all emphasized the importance of cultivation, and ended up pushing this responsibility onto him instead. But his skills were rather mediocre. What if someone intentionally tried to test him? Afraid that I couldn't maintain control of the situation, so I had no choice but to ask senior brother Qing Yanzi for assistance. After learning the full story, Qing Yanzi said in a deep voice, "If you're looking for a cultivator at the core formation stage to stabilize the situation, I'm afraid I won't be able to go." Hearing this, Li Shiwu instantly panicked. "Senior brother, could it be that your cultivation level has dropped? How is this even possible?" Qing Yanzi turned his head with a faint smile. "It's not that I fell. It's just that I broke through the void core realm a few months ago. Going there might not be very appropriate." As he spoke, the young man casually formed a cluster of energy in his hand. Such a humble brag instantly left Li Shiwu feeling utterly defeated. He couldn't help but mentally unleash a string of expletives. Can you, as a Taoist, stop being so full of yourself? So what if your cultivation level is high? Is reaching the void pill stage such a big deal? This old Taoist has only just entered the spirit gathering stage. Could you consider how I might feel about this? Then Xing Lianzi spoke again saying, "Although I can't go, my 2 disciples happen to meet your requirements quite well." Hearing this statement, Li Shiwu was so shocked he opened his mouth wide but said nothing. Have he Feiyu already broken through to the formation stage? Xing Lianzi sighed in a rather self-satisfied manner. They're just barely adequate, I suppose. Xiao Xian only advanced to the forming core realm a few months ago. I tend to focus more on the path of the sword. I became an apprentice relatively late. so my cultivation level is somewhat inferior to his. Senior sister barely reached the later stage of the divine realm. Hearing this, Li Shiwu felt so disheartened he almost wanted to cry. I understand that your own cultivation level is high, and your disciple has impressive talent. But do you really have to show off like this? If my cultivation level weren't lower than yours, I truly wish I could settle this life and death struggle with you right now. At this moment, Wang Shang, who was eavesdropping outside the door, was holding back his laughter with great effort. Thinking to himself, master's skill in staying composed while being subtly cheeky is becoming more refined with each passing day. Before long, evening arrived. After Li Shiwu and King Lianzi finished discussing the relevant matters with the young man, they took their leave. King Lianzi began instructing Wang Shang to accompany senior sister and follow Uncle Li to attend the exchange meeting, emphasizing the points to keep in mind. However, compared to Wang Shang, senior sister Mu Wanxian grew up in the mountains from a young age. Her heart is pure, completely free of distracting thoughts. She naturally couldn't escape her master's repeated reminders. For example, after going down the mountain, her phone must always be with her. If the battery runs low, she should immediately use a power bank to recharge. She shouldn't casually talk to strangers, nor should she get into someone else's car without a good reason. Men down the mountain are not to be trusted. Make it a habit to show care for your junior brothers. Mu Wanxian nodded in agreement to everything without hesitation. Wang Shang listened to his master's earnest advice with patience. He responded with a gentle smile. However, he was well aware of how deceitful people could be. It was never as peaceful and carefree as life on the mountain. His senior sister had a pure and simple heart. And yet, with her striking beauty and unassuming nature, there was a real chance she might get tricked by others. But speaking of these past few years, Wang Shang has made significant progress. He has now reached the level where he can calmly help his senior sister organize her personal belongings. His expression remains unflinching. However, there are exceptions. Some things, when seen too often, can indeed make one's inner resolve waver. The following morning, Wang Shang packed his suitcase early and waited at the doorstep. Qing Lianzi reminded him, "This time, remember to stay humble and patient while you're away. Never use your strength to bully the weak. It's also not acceptable to show off your mastery of Taoist techniques everywhere. Try to keep a low profile as much as possible. Do you understand?" Wang Shang patted his chest and promised, "Master, rest assured. When it comes to staying low-key, that's something I'm good at." At that moment, senior sister Mu Wanxian stepped out wearing a Taoist robe, leaving Wang Shang completely captivated. Meanwhile, Cheng Lianzi gave Wang Shang a push and chuckled, "Go on over there. Let me take a picture of you too. I'll post it on my social media, so others can be envious." Wang Shang felt a bit helpless. "Master, weren't you the one who said to stay low-key?" Still, he cooperated and took a photo. The energy of heaven and earth began to recover. The world has entered an era of cultivation. Major cultivation sects are reclaiming their lost legacies, gathering at Mount Mao to prove their superiority. Wang Shang and his senior sister represented Wudong to uphold their reputation. Z had just descended the mountain. Their attire immediately drew the attention of passers-by, who began taking photos. Wang Shang gave a helpless smile. He reminded his senior sister that if anyone takes photos of her or anything like that, she should just pretend not to notice. She must avoid taking action or hurting anyone. While eating, his senior sister nodded in agreement. She seemed to agree wholeheartedly while munching on her food. Wang Shang couldn't help but notice her adorable and clueless expression. Wang Shang couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Senior sister is so beautiful. If someone tried to act indecently and got slapped by senior sister, that scene is truly hard to imagine. At this moment, Uncle Li waved at the two of them. Wang Shang accompanied senior sister to go greet Uncle Li. Afterwards, Uncle Li introduced them briefly to a few other third-generation disciples of the Wudong sect. They were sword cultivator Zhou Yinglong, body cultivator Hao Lin, and Meng Hong. Wang Shang observed their auras. It is evident that he has also reached the spirit consolidation realm. He couldn't help but feel a sense of awe in his heart. The strength of Wudong truly cannot be underestimated. However, the core of Wudong's heritage belongs to the true martial lineage. Their Taoist techniques are mostly similar to martial arts. In this era of revival in Daochang, the fusion of Taoism and martial arts might be looked down upon by other sects, or perhaps even completely disregarded. As these thoughts crossed his mind, Wang Shang and his senior sister followed the group onto the bus. After getting in the car, Wang Sheng noticed that his senior sister kept staring out the window. He couldn't help but ask if she was really looking forward to it. Unexpectedly, his senior sister turned around and sent him several meme stickers. This move was honestly quite something. Wang Sheng felt a little helpless. The phone was one he had bought for his senior sister during a ritual he performed earlier. After she switched to a new phone, her skills in using meme stickers kept improving. Nowadays, if you were to gauge her ability to compete in meme battles, it seems that everyone here might be considered worthless. At the same time, Wang Sheng made a firm resolve in his heart. In his previous life, he only lived to the age of 31. There were so many things he never truly got to experience. This time, everything will be different. Moreover, he is determined to protect the people around him. Not long after that, the bus arrived at the hotel at the foot of Mount Mao. Since the cultivation conference doesn't officially start until tomorrow afternoon, Uncle Li instructed them to take this time to rest well. You can also take a walk around and explore. Don't overexert yourself. So everyone chose to rest at the hotel for the night. But when the next morning came, the senior sister was sitting alone in the room playing on her phone. Feeling upset, Wang Sheng cautiously opened the door and asked the senior sister, "Are you waiting for me? Are you upset with me?" Unexpectedly, the senior sister turned and gave him a slap. "Hurry up and cheer me up with those reaction memes." It turns out that last night, while checking into the hotel, the senior sister originally intended to share a room with Wang Sheng, just like they did on the mountain. But considering this was outside after all, Wang Sheng felt it might be somewhat inappropriate and declined. The senior sister got upset because of this. So early this morning, he came over to apologize to her. He planned to take her out for a stroll. After all, it's not every day they come to Mount Mao, so they should at least buy some local specialties for their master. It happened to be at this moment. The other fellow disciples were also planning to go out and buy some things. A few of them immediately decided to head out together for a walk, to experience the charm and scenery of Mount Mao. However, while they were strolling around, a voice suddenly came from behind them. "May I ask which sect you belong to?" "I am Lu Yunji from Mount Mao. Greetings to you, fellow cultivators." The group turned around and introduced themselves. "I am Zhouang Long from Wudong Mountain. It's a pleasure to meet you, fellow cultivators." After a brief exchange of pleasantries, both sides took their leave and then departed. This move left Wang Sheng feeling a bit puzzled. He couldn't figure out what these people from Maoshan were up to. Were they simply here to say hello? But before he got far, he suddenly heard a mocking voice behind him. Nowadays, everyone focuses on cultivating the Tao and understanding the laws. What are disciples from Wudong doing meddling here? Are they planning to show off their swordplay or martial arts? Wang Sheng turned his head to look. In an instant, he understood. It turned out they were looking for someone to spar with. Seeing how arrogant they were, it didn't take long before someone couldn't hold back and gave one of the blonde-haired guys a hit. The blonde-haired guy, caught off guard by the sudden hit, shouted loudly, asking who was sneak attacking him. Wang Sheng turned his head to look at his senior sister. Without needing to think, he knew it had to be her doing. So he grabbed his senior sister's hand and walked away without looking back. After all, if you've done something wrong, why wouldn't you run? Are you going to stay here and pick a fight instead? Meanwhile, the two disciples of Mount Mao stood there furiously shouting and yelling. Who on earth dares to do this? Are you too afraid to admit it? What kind of skill is it to harm someone in secret? If you look down on the disciples of Mount Mao, then come forward and teach us openly. At this moment, Lu Yunji bent down and interrupted their conversation. If it weren't for the reckless words you two spoke behind others' backs, you wouldn't have faced this consequence. As he spoke, Lu Yunji picked up an object from the ground, which turned out to be the item that had just been used to ambush the yellow-haired man, and discovered that it was actually a small steamed dumpling. What's more, it was completely intact. Even the dumpling skin remained unbroken. Seeing this, Lu Yunji couldn't help but think to himself, the skill displayed here truly reflects an impressive level of mastery. It's no less remarkable than that arrogant guy from Mount Longhu. This is exactly what one would expect from Wudong. The younger generation indeed has its share of outstanding figures. Soon, the time moved into the afternoon. The square in front of the Maoshan reopened palace became the focus. Representatives from all the sects practicing immortality gathered there. Uncle Master Li walked at the forefront. He warmly greeted everyone present. Yet, there were still quite a few sects practicing immortality. there was widespread discussion about Wudong. These days, it's no longer the era where martial arts and swordsmanship dominate the world. Yet Wudong still decided to join the fray. They even brought along a beautiful female disciple, clearly aiming to boost their reputation. Could it be that she was hired with money? Wang Shang listened to these remarks, feeling somewhat helpless. The Tao had just begun to revive. It's understandable that Taoist martial arts are not yet being taken seriously. However, dear masters, could you keep your voices down while discussing? Otherwise, I'm afraid I might not be able to hold back my senior sister. As expected, Wang Sheng turned his head, only to see his senior sister had sent him another sticker implying she would take on 10 opponents, leaving Wang Sheng unsure of what to do next. At this moment, Uncle Li let out a sigh. By now, everyone should have a general understanding of the current environment. Various sects and factions are all waiting to see us make a fool of ourselves. During the upcoming Taoist exchange, there's an 80% chance someone will ask a few of you to step forward for a sparring match. Speaking of this, Uncle Li suddenly looked at Mu Wanxian with a gleam in his eyes, and revealed a kind and gentle smile. Without saying a word, all you need to do is make a move at the right time to leave a strong impression. Today, we can finally sit back and enjoy the show. Hearing this, Wang Shang was about to mention that their master had reminded them to keep a low profile. But before he could finish speaking, his senior sister immediately nodded and agreed. This left Wang Shang feeling utterly helpless. One could already imagine what kind of scene would unfold later. It seems the fellow cultivators will just have to fend for themselves. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is reviving. The once declining sects of cultivation are rising once again. However, Wudong, originally renowned for its mastery of hand-to-hand combat and swordsmanship, ended up being looked down upon by others, with some even believing that Wudong was merely there to join the fun, and went as far as hiring a beautiful female disciple, just to gain publicity. Little did they know, this female disciple from Wudong was capable of effortlessly overpowering everyone present. At this moment, an elder from the Maoshan sect, serving as the host, announced the official start of the gathering. The very first segment is where disciples from various sects take the stage to showcase their cultivation skills. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng immediately understood. This Taoist exchange conference is essentially a Taoist sect's reconnaissance gathering, isn't it? However, before stepping onto the stage, he still needed to remind his senior sister that if she truly had to go up later, there was no need to reveal too much of her abilities. Just reveal your cultivation level. The senior sister nodded in agreement. Then a disciple from Maoshan stepped forward. Since that's the case, let us Maoshan go first. Think of it as setting an example. Immediately, he was seen walking onto the stage. He took out a talisman, uttered a humble remark, and began channeling spiritual energy into it. The talisman gradually began to take shape. There was only the sound of a swift whoosh. Amazingly, the talisman actually transformed into a sword. And then, in the blink of an eye, he made it disappear. After watching the performance of this disciple from Maoshan, Wang Shang and his senior sister were left speechless. Miniature indeed. Each sect clearly wouldn't share their own Taoist teachings. At that moment, a mocking voice suddenly came from behind. So this is the renowned Maoshan Taoist magic? That's truly impressive. When I was a kid, under the overpass, $1 could get me 7 performances. And they'd even give me a few cents in change. It's really brought great honor to the Fulu 3 sects. Wang Shang and the senior sister turned to look toward the sound. They saw a blonde-haired young man lying on a chair not far away. Judging by his appearance, he seemed to be part of the Fulu 3 sects too, though it's unclear whether he's from Mount Longhu or a descendant of Mount Gazao. However, judging from Wang Shang's tone, it seems he had some conflict with the Taoist priests of Mount Mao. At this moment, the elder Taoist hosting the competition stepped forward to ease the situation. The 3 sects of Fu, Lu, and Shou each have their own strengths, and naturally their unique highlights as well. Now, let's invite the next Taoist sect to showcase their skills. As soon as those words were spoken, Zhou Yinglong stepped onto the stage on behalf of Wudong, holding his sword, preparing to demonstrate the Wudong Tai sword technique. But just as the performance was about to begin, a burst of laughter arose from the audience. The Wudong sword technique is indeed exquisite. But today, everyone is showcasing Taoist arts. Using sword techniques doesn't seem very appropriate. Could it be that Wudong doesn't have a sword controlling technique? Ah, that's right, with the lack of spiritual energy in the past, Wudong naturally wouldn't value such so-called sword controlling techniques. Hearing the audience's mocking laughter, Zhou Yinglong on the stage couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. At this moment, the blonde-haired young man spoke up again. Don't go around saying things carelessly. Be cautious of this senior brother from Wudong. He can unleash 3,000 sword energies with a single strike, and take you all down instantly. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused everyone to burst into laughter. Zhou Yinglong looked a bit flustered, standing there unsure of what to do. Luckily, at that moment, Wang Shang stepped forward and addressed senior brother Zhou. Let me handle it. Zhou Yinglong paused for a moment to think. The senior uncle once said, the junior brother's mastery of swordsmanship is exceptional. Having him step onto the stage would indeed be far more suitable than me. So he handed the sword to Wang Shang with both hands. Brother, you admits his skills are lacking. I'll leave it to you, junior brother. Wang Shang took the sword. Humbly returning to the sword technique of his senior, its divine brilliance was subdued. Thus, it sometimes went unnoticed by those with ordinary vision. I possess a rather flashy perspective, used as a way to conceal. Perfectly fitting. Then, Wang Shang was seen closing his eyes, standing motionless in the same place. Muttering under his breath, the sword rises to pluck the stars, and falls to exchange for the bright moon. How remarkable is the sword technique, excluding the ways of the Tao. With that said, Wang Shang leaped into the air. Sword energy radiated in all directions around him. The elder Taoist overseeing the scene couldn't help but exclaim, the luminous sword heart. This is undoubtedly the sword heart described in ancient texts. Following this, Wang Shang began demonstrating the 7-star sword formation, unfolding its intricate transformations. Countless afterimages formed as he moved swiftly, stepping continuously on the 7 stars. Finally, he thrust his sword skyward with a single strike. It pierced the sky above, leaving several gaping holes. Everyone was stunned by this scene. What kind of realm is this? To possess such astonishing comprehension of swordsmanship. Is this person a sword immortal? But isn't he just a third-generation disciple? And still only at the spirit-gathering stage. The demonstration was complete. Wang Shang sheathed his sword and prepared to leave. Now, it seems no one would dare underestimate Wudong anymore. After stepping down, Wang Shang returned the sword to senior brother Zhou. However, when Zhou Yinglong took the sword, he felt it might not be appropriate to call Wang Shang junior brother anymore. He asked if it was still acceptable to start addressing Wang Shang as senior brother now. Wang Shang was at a loss for words, thinking to himself, senior brother, you're joking with me. Afterward, the presiding old Taoist announced that the next segment would be an opportunity for all Taoists to identify and fill any gaps in their knowledge. It was a chance for mutual validation and exchange. There was no need for anyone to feel constrained. Dear Taoist friends, feel free to seek advice from one another. As soon as these words were spoken, Mu Wanxian immediately became excited. Her entire demeanor looked eager and ready to go, which left Wang Shang feeling a bit helpless. He could only ask if senior sister truly intended to step up. Without a doubt. Senior sister nodded with her eyes shining brightly. Then she pointed toward a corner, gesturing for Wang Shang to look over there. Wang Shang turned his head to look. He noticed that the blonde-haired young man from earlier was staring at them. Then, the young man got up from his chair. He was walking in their direction. At first, Wang Shang suspected this guy might be interested in his senior sister. But when the blonde-haired young man got closer, Wang Shang realized something was off. It turned out that the person this guy was looking for was actually him. Fortunately, at that moment, Lu Yunji from the Maoshan sect walked over, redirected the attention of the young man with yellow hair. Lu Yunji took the initiative to speak, humbly sought guidance. The Fulu Avenue of Mount Longhu would send a virtuous practitioner like Shi Qianzhang. Could the disciple have another chance to spar? Shi Qianzhang sighed with a smile, scratched his head, reluctantly said, how could it be? Are you still not convinced by the loss last time? However, anyway, there's no need to worry about that shameless guy from Wudong running away. It won't take much time to defeat you. Let's get started. But when he heard Shi Qianzhang refer to him as shameless, Wang Shang's face immediately darkened. He felt a sudden urge to strike him with his sword, but he managed to hold himself back. Then the two of them stepped onto the stage. Lu Yunji still maintained an expressionless face. Shi Qianzhang smiled and asked him what the competition would be about this time. Lu Yunji drew his sword. He decisively responded that it would naturally be the method of fortune and prosperity again, both belonging to the three sects of fortune and prosperity. The disciples of Mount Mao and Mount Longhu engaged in a contest to see who could truly come out ahead. At this moment, Shi Qianzhang let out a hearty laugh and declared that he would bow to no one. As he spoke, he demonstrated his skill of creating objects out of thin air. This scene left Wang Shang, who was watching from the audience, marveling in amazement. It was unexpected that the method of blessings contained such extraordinary wonders. To think there could be such miraculous blessings within. However, Lu Yunji has practiced cultivation since childhood. And with the strong support of his sect, reaching the mid-stage of the colossal god realm is not surprising. But for this Shi Qianzhang to have achieved the late stage of the colossal god realm, at a time when the world's spiritual energy is just beginning to recover, for the younger generation to step into the colossal god realm, they must truly be talents with great potential. This Shi Qianzhang must possess extraordinary aptitude. It must be the sacred ground of Mount Longhu. There must be something extraordinary about it. At this moment, Lu Yunji placed his hand on the sword. Then, with a gentle stroke, countless talismans immediately began swirling around him. He raised the treasured sword high in his hand and shouted loudly, "The Azure Green Order." In the next instant, under the shadow of thunder, 3 talismans flew out from the clouds above. Closely following was the deafening roar of a tremendous crash. A sudden thunderbolt struck straight down. Shi Qianzhang casually placed his hands in his pockets, stepping back unhurriedly by a single step. He smirked and remarked, "Same old trick again." Truly lacking in originality. Yet Lu Yunji's assault did not cease. Instead, he continued unleashing the thunder light technique, swinging his sword in a forceful slash, augmented further by the combination of the swift talisman and the double jumpsuit buffs, which triggered countless bolts of lightning to rain down toward Shi Qianzhang, capable of interpreting 1,000 scrolls, yet still keeps both hands casually in his pockets, moving as if strolling leisurely through a garden, effortlessly evading all these attacks. Having had enough fun, he decided it was time to show some real skill. He took out 2 talismans, which transformed into a celestial crane and a spirit snake, both of which charged at Lu Yunji. Lu Yunji swung his sword and sliced the snake and crane in half, but Shi Qianzhang merely gave a faint smile, snapped his fingers, and conjured multiple talismans with different attributes out of thin air. In an instant, attacks of 4 different elements surged overwhelmingly toward Lu Yunji. Shi Qianzhang arrogantly declared, "If you can force me today to use talismans costing more than $100 to make, I'll admit defeat. How about that?" Lu Yunji felt deeply insulted, shouted loudly for silence, immediately decided to go all out. In an instant, countless talismans surrounded him, creating a golden protective shield, blocking Shi Qianzhang's elemental attacks. Shi Qianzhang, seeing this, remained calm and unhurried, with one hand in his pocket, stepped back a few paces, and flung out 2 black talismans. In the next moment, the 2 talismans transformed into countless butterflies. In just an instant, they surrounded Lu Yunji, and soon after, he was completely engulfed. However, right at that moment, golden rays of light suddenly emanated from within the black butterflies. Lu Yunji formed a hand seal for an additive incantation, unleashing a dazzling burst of golden light, which drove away all the black butterflies completely. Witnessing this scene, even Wang Shang in the audience was a bit shocked. Who would have thought that robe was actually a magical artifact? Even though the quality of the robe doesn't seem particularly high, it requires a significant amount of true essence and spiritual focus to sustain. But being able to witness an authentic Taoist magical artifact, this trip wasn't in vain after all. Meanwhile, the senior sister next to him was also staring at the stage with eyes full of excitement, looking as if she couldn't wait to take action. She had the urge to rush up and take that robe right off, and let her junior brother wear it instead. At that moment, Master Shi Qianzhang on the stage suddenly smiled. An artifact passed down for thousands of years was actually entrusted to a disciple of the giant god realm from Maoshan. How utterly shameless. But then again, the old folks of our Dragon Tiger Mountain are pretty shameless too. By coincidence, they once gave me something just like this. As he spoke, Shi Qianzhang pulled out a crescent-shaped jade stone. Then he chuckled and said, "How about it? Nowadays, no one seems to care about their reputation anymore. although Lu Yunji didn't understand what this was for. That piece of jade was clearly a magical artifact. However, since he had already played his trump card, there was no room for him to lose this sparring match. So he decisively chose to strike first, unleashing a massive burst of golden light. It came crashing down fiercely toward Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang still kept his hands casually in his pockets. He casually swayed from side to side a few times, and effortlessly avoided those attacks. Immediately after, he lightly tossed the crescent-shaped magical artifact, and the jade instantly attached itself to his forehead. In the blink of an eye, Shi Qianzhang's aura surged dramatically, forming a hand seal with his fingers, chanting an incantation, and shouting a powerful command to rise. A blue protective barrier suddenly rose up around the area, blocking Lu Yunji's ferocious and unstoppable attack. Then, Shi Qianzhang conjured several black talismans, and pointed his finger to activate all the talismans, sending them simultaneously toward Lu Yunji. Realizing the situation had taken a turn for the worse, Lu Yunji quickly summoned a golden protective shield to defend himself. But he never expected that as the black talismans were about to collide with him, they would suddenly release a large amount of red liquid, then adhered to that golden protective shield. Witnessing this scene, the disciples of Ma Shan below the stage couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Even black dog blood was used. Do you have no shame? Meanwhile, Lu Yunji on the stage, after the protective shield was broken by the black dog blood, momentarily let his guard down, and got his face scratched by a flying black talisman. Touching the bloodstain on his face, Lu Yunji set the sword down. He struggled to say 3 words, "I lost." In the end, Shi Qianzhang proved to be the better one in this battle. Wang Shang couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This disciple of Longhu Mountain is truly remarkable. Suddenly, the voice of Uncle Li came from the side. That Shi Qianzhang is anything but ordinary. Wang Shang felt a bit puzzled. Uncle, do you know him? Uncle Li nodded with a serious expression. It's said that he went to Mount Longhu to practice Taoism about 5 or 6 years ago. Before the resurgence of the world's spiritual energy, he had already mastered the fundamentals of talismanic techniques. After the return of the world's spiritual energy, he advanced significantly within a short period of time, having mastered both volumes of the Fulu scripture from Dragon Tiger Mountain. At a young age, he had already created more than a dozen unique talisman techniques. He is now the leading figure among the younger generation of Dragon Tiger Mountain. He has been personally mentored by the celestial master of Dragon Tiger Mountain. His future can be described as limitless. After listening to Uncle Li's explanation, Wang Sheng couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Logically speaking, if Shi Qianzhang had such potential, why had he never heard of this person in his previous life? Could it be that he encountered some calamity and passed away prematurely? Otherwise, with his eloquence and flamboyant personality, how could he possibly remain unknown? At this moment, Shi Qianzhang, who had just finished the competition, suddenly burst into laughter. That mischievous young man from Wudong Mountain. Let's have a little contest. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone's attention turned and focused on Wang Sheng in the crowd. Wang Sheng himself was utterly baffled. He remembered his master's advice to stay humble before leaving. But then he glanced at his senior sister and fellow disciples. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. Backing down without a fight in such a situation would only tarnish Wudong's reputation as fearful and timid. Thus, he made up his mind to accept the challenge. He rose from his seat and said, "Senior brother Englong, may I borrow your treasured sword?" He was destined to be the future sword immortal of Wudong with his mastery over the art of the sword. Yet in his daily practice, he used nothing more than a wooden sword. Now that he was about to step into the arena for a match, he astonishingly didn't even have a sword of his own. When the crowd heard that Wang Sheng was going on stage and needed to borrow a sword from someone, the disciples from other sects in the audience burst into mocking jeers. How little regard Wudong must have for this future sword immortal, to the point of not even providing him with a sword. Look at the disciples of Mao Shan and Longhushan, throwing talismans around as if they cost nothing. At this moment, senior sister suddenly tugged at Wang Sheng's sleeve, her face full of worry. Wang Sheng held senior sister's hand and softly reassured her. "Senior sister, don't worry, everything will be fine. It's all right." Upon hearing this, the senior sister's face instantly turned red. She then began cheering and encouraging Wang Sheng. Before stepping onto the stage, Uncle Li reminded Wang Sheng to prioritize his own safety. Even if he lost, it would not be a big deal. This kind of reputation doesn't really matter. After that, Wang Sheng officially stepped onto the stage. The two of them briefly embraced. After acknowledging their lineage and titles, Master Qian Zhang suddenly pointed towards Mu Wanxian in the audience. He said, "Buddy, could you share your senior sister's contact information? How about we make a bet? If you lose later, then you'll give me your senior sister's contact information." Wang Sheng simply responded calmly, "Let's talk about it after the match." But deep down, he was already burning with anger. It takes a special skill to be this infuriating. This guy sure knows how to push people's buttons. The match then officially commenced. Shi Qianzhang unleashed 3 talismans as his initial attack. The talismans transformed into 3 blazing flames, rushing straight towards Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng swiftly dodged to the right, leaving behind a fleeting afterimage, effortlessly evading the attack. A massive shadow loomed over him, instantly engulfing him in darkness. He looked up to see what it was. It turned out to be a giant crane transformed from the essence of fortune and prosperity. Its massive claw was raised, reaching toward him with a fierce grip. Wang Sheng leaped high into the air with agility. He narrowly evaded the attack with swift precision. Then, stepping on the formations of the Big Dipper, he moved gracefully. With a single step, he shattered the crane into fragments instantly. In the blink of an eye, he appeared right in front of Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang was startled and visibly shaken. He hurriedly activated the original jump talisman. Leaping into the air, he soared to escape. Prepared to distance himself from Wang Sheng. Planned to use talismans to exhaust Wang Sheng. But before he even landed, Wang Sheng had already appeared behind him. Shi Qianzhang quickly turned around, aiming to distance himself from Wang Sheng once again. But this time, Wang Sheng didn't give him a chance. Directly created countless afterimages to surround him completely. Then seized the right moment and decisively drew his sword. His speed was so fast that Shi Qianzhang had no time to react. The sword was already pressed against his neck. The outcome was already decided. Shi Qianzhang immediately admitted defeat and said, "Big brother, calm down. I absolutely have no improper thoughts about our senior sister." Seeing him concede, Wang Sheng also withdrew his sword. He turned around, ready to step off the stage. But he was stopped by Shi Qianzhang. Then Shi Qianzhang smiled and said, "Brother Sheng, I'm feeling a bit unconvinced. How about we have another match? Otherwise, I might start bothering you like Lu Yunji kept pestering me. I'll come to Wudong Mountain every day to challenge you." Wang Sheng turned to look at Shi Qianzhang, completely at a loss for words. He couldn't understand why the masters of Longhu Mountain wouldn't do something about this guy. Shi Qianzhang, on the other hand, was shameless enough. He continued, "Come on, Brother Sheng, from now on, can I just call you my big brother? Let's have another match. If I lose this fast again this time, I promise I'll never mention sparring with you again, Brother Sheng. As long as you win against others, you can't let others beat you. That's way too overbearing." As soon as these words were spoken, even the audience below the stage couldn't bear to listen anymore. They started shouting for Shi Qianzhang to step down already. "Stop embarrassing yourself any further." In order to avoid being bothered by this guy again in the future, Wang Sheng could only let out a helpless sigh, and reluctantly agreed to it. Shi Qianzhang was overjoyed, and immediately closed his eyes, forming a hand seal for the spell, while chanting the incantation aloud, gathering all his energy and using every talisman he had, as he prepared to unleash a powerful move. So Wang Sheng could make sure he would accept his defeat willingly. He simply drew his sword, but refrained from interrupting him. Yet there was still a bit of concern that he might persist in causing trouble afterward. So he decided that since it had come to this, he would let him make his move with full force first, and then throw a bucket of cold water on him, to let him experience what true despair feels like. At that moment, Shi Qianzhang suddenly opened his eyes. His face filled with excitement as he said he was ready. "Come on, finish your words." He then unleashed his most powerful strike on Wang Sheng. 3 massive beasts formed from talismans, charged directly toward Wang Sheng. However, Wang Sheng simply released a casual sword aura, and effortlessly sliced the 3 beasts into halves. Shi Qianzhang was utterly stunned, but he was still unwilling to admit defeat so easily. He launched another multi-elemental attack, which came surging toward Wang Sheng like a tidal wave. Wang Sheng conjured multiple afterimages to evade the attack. Step by step, he moved closer to Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang hurriedly summoned an earth wall in an attempt to defend himself. But before his earth wall could even rise, a sudden gust of wind swept past him. In an instant, the pouch at his waist was sliced cleanly in half. The next moment, Wang Sheng appeared behind him. Sword energy surged intensely around him. Witnessing this scene, shouts of astonishment erupted from the crowd below the stage. That earlier was sword energy leaving the blade. That's impossible. How could someone that young achieve such a feat? Meanwhile, Wang Sheng looked regretfully at the broken sword in his hand. He hadn't expected that even senior brother Zhou's sword couldn't withstand the force of his true essence. Then he turned around and respectfully cupped his hands toward Shi Qianzhang, and simply said, "Thank you for letting me win." Afterward, he stepped off the stage and went directly to find his senior sister. Earnestly told the senior sister that he had won. The senior sister immediately sent him a gift saying yay. Wang Sheng gave an awkward smile and said, "Thank you for cheering me on, senior sister." However, in his heart, he was thinking, today's attention-grabbing moments seemed a bit over the top. But since the upcoming days would be spent in quiet cultivation in the mountains, it probably wouldn't matter much. At that moment, the senior sister's eyes suddenly sharpened, and she moved to shield Wang Sheng behind her. Turning his head to look, it turned out to be Shi Qianzhang holding the destroyed talisman bag, walking towards them with a grim expression. Wang Sheng placed his hand on his senior sister's shoulder, indicating that he would handle this situation. He then stepped forward and asked Shi Qianzhang what else he needed. Shi Qianzhang gritted his teeth at these words, and suddenly dashed forward in a swift motion. Everyone was startled and taken aback, quickly warning Wang Sheng to be careful. But unexpectedly, in the very next moment, Shi Qianzhang suddenly began to cry and complain. "Big brother, couldn't you just cut me directly? Why did you have to destroy my fortune and blessings? These black talisman materials are ridiculously expensive. I spent 30,000 on the whole set." Everyone who heard this was instantly left dumbfounded. At that moment, a large foot came flying in, interrupting Shi Qianzhang before he could say anything further. Then he furiously reprimanded, "Enough. Stop embarrassing yourself here. Go back and ask the sect to provide you with double the materials." But unexpectedly, Shi Qianzhang, that guy, took advantage of the situation and still acted ungrateful. He pushed his luck and said, "Uncle Master, how about giving me a dozen of those yellow talismans signed by Su Ming?" The Uncle Master slapped him directly and told him to get lost. "I don't even use those myself. Go back and behave yourself. Why not just take back your magical artifact as well?" After saying that, he dragged Shi Qianzhang and turned to leave. But even so, Shi Qianzhang still couldn't resist shouting to Wang Sheng, "Brother Sheng, your swordsmanship, I, Shi Qianzhang, truly admire. How about adding me on WeChat? Let's grab a meal together later." Wang Sheng was left speechless. He was completely defeated by this clown. The vitality of heaven and earth is being restored. Cultivation sects gathered at Mount Mao to exchange techniques and compete in duels. A young disciple represented Wudong to challenge Mount Longhu. The top prodigy faced a barrage of talismans one after another. He caught a sword strike and countered with a single slash. He actually managed to make the top genius of Mount Longhu break into tears. After seeing off Shi Qianzhang, the exchange conference finally moved into its main agenda. Because of Wang Sheng's intervention, no one else dared to come forward and embarrass themselves afterward. From then on, they only needed to quietly observe. This would allow the entire conference to proceed smoothly. Soon, it was time for the competition at the formation core stage. The other sect members seemed hesitant to step forward. They were afraid of losing and bringing shame to their sect. However, Mu Wanxian showed no fear at all. She stepped up and completely dominated her opponents. Her expression remained cold and indifferent throughout. Not a single word came out of her mouth. The disciples from the other sects in the audience were left staring in shock with their mouths agape. As for Wang Sheng, his expression remained calm. Thinking to himself, it was just as expected. Ordinary practitioners at the embryo formation stage stood no chance against senior sister. The competition came to an end. Mu Wanxian immediately headed toward Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng gave her a thumbs up, impressed by her skills. Hearing this, Mu Wanxian let out a deep breath of relief. She felt a sense of ease and exhaled softly. A smile once again appeared on her face. At that moment, the murmurs of other disciples from the Taoist sect could be heard from behind her. So young, and already in the mid-stage of forming the golden core. A true powerhouse, this is what a real powerhouse looks like. Just as the words were spoken, Mu Wanxian once again unleashed the full aura of the golden core stage. Her expression turned serious, leaving everyone around completely stunned in an instant. Seeing how senior sister acts in front of him, compared to how she behaves around others, Wang Shang gave a helpless smile at senior sister. This must have been quite difficult for you. But starting from today, all major sects should have already found their own paths. As long as the vitality of heaven and earth continues to exist, the grand pursuit of cultivation will rise once again. I'm afraid this era of peace won't last much longer. Although the sects can discipline their disciples, what about rogue cultivators, demonic practitioners, or beasts that tread the path of becoming demons? The path of cultivation might have become easier to tread. But how should one handle the endless conflicts of the mortal world? In the end, Wang Shang decided not to overthink it. After all, thinking too much wouldn't change a thing. You should do as much work as your strength allows. When he steps down, there'll always be someone taller to take the lead. No matter what happens, the path of cultivation he has chosen, he can now walk it with dignity from here on out. Afterwards, the conference came to an end. Wang Shang led his senior sister and fellow disciples as they prepared to descend the mountain. Unexpectedly, after taking just a few steps, suddenly, a familiar voice called out, "Brother Shang." "Hold on, Brother Shang." Wang Shang heard this voice, couldn't help but shiver. With a stiff expression, turned around and asked, "Do you have any business here?" Then, Shi Qianzhang excitedly picked up the phone, indicating that they wanted to add a friend. "We had agreed on this before. In the future, it's inevitable that we'll have to interact with each other. Let's look out for each other, alright?" Wang Shang felt helpless. He had no choice but to add him as a friend. Afterwards, Shi Qianzhang suggested. He wanted to take this opportunity to have a proper conversation with him. Wang Shang casually replied that talking was fine. "But I can't afford to compensate for those talismans." Shi Qianzhang chuckled. "Oh, it's fine, it's all fine. At the time, I just wanted my martial uncle to help me gather some materials. I exaggerated the amount a little. Those talismans only cost a few $1,000s to make." Wang Shang felt a wave of embarrassment. The only way to describe him is with two words: you're ruthless. But just as the group was preparing to head down the mountain together, a voice came from behind them. It was Lu Yunji calling out, "Brother Feiyu, please slow down. Wait for me. It's thanks to Brother Dao for teaching that scoundrel a lesson today. It truly fills my heart with an indescribable sense of satisfaction. I had no choice but to come after you to express my gratitude, Brother Dao." Wang Sheng cupped his hands and said, "Brother Lu, you're too kind." Meanwhile, Shi Qianzhang dismissively picked at his nose in disdain. "Talking so overly refined. Who are you even trying to impress? What era do you think this is? Still going on about being fierce and intimidating?" Lu Yunji immediately snapped back. "That's still better than you constantly using vulgar language." Shi Qianzhang chuckled at the defeated opponent. "You still dare to stir up trouble in front of me?" It looked like the two were about to get into a fight. Wang Sheng quickly stepped in to mediate, saying, "Both of you must be hungry. Let's head down the mountain together and grab something to eat. Dinner's on me tonight." Afterward, the group went to a restaurant to have a meal. During the assembly, everyone represented their respective sects. Naturally, they appeared reserved. However, after entering the private room, it didn't take long for everyone to warm up to each other. Wang Sheng, during the conversation, learned about Shi Qianzhang and Lu Yunji's backgrounds. It turned out that Shi Qianzhang was the same age as him. In his youth, he was mischievous, and was sent by his family to relatives in Longhu Mountain for discipline. Due to his exceptional talent and blessings in fortune, he was able to achieve the success he enjoys today. As for Lu Yunji, he was not unfamiliar to Wang Sheng. After all, the other person was one of the distinguished figures of the 36 Gates in his previous life. He had followed his master since childhood to train and cultivate himself. Combined with his extraordinary demeanor, he had amassed a large following on the internet. As for how the two of them became rivals, the story goes back to a few years ago, when Lu Yunji went to Mount Longhu for training. He was ambushed by Shi Qianzhang with a sneak attack. From that moment on, the two bore a grudge against each other, and their enmity has endured ever since. Later, Lu Yunji made some progress in his cultivation. He wanted to seek revenge, but he faced repeated setbacks, which led to the scene at today's assembly. And during today's gathering, Wang Shang and his senior sister impressed many sects. Their presence here to establish connections under their master's orders makes sense. But of course, he wouldn't let it inflate his ego. After all, in the current world, one must remain humble and composed. Steady cultivation is the proper path. Before long, nightfall arrived. A woman was watching the video recording of the Maoshan sect exchange conference, instructed her subordinates to quickly extract any useful information from it. At this moment, a staff member seemed to have discovered something, and said to the team leader, "Take a look at this." Then immediately pulled up the footage of Wang Shang during his battle. The audience at the scene couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Who is that person? Is he a sword immortal? This looks like swordsmanship straight out of television. At this point, the team leader picked up his cup and asked who is he. The staff immediately replied, this person is named Wang Shang. He is known as Dao Hao Feiyu. Based on the information we intercepted and organized, his master is Dao Hao Kinjianzi. It's said that his cultivation has already surpassed the Jietai realm. As they spoke, the staff pulled up the photos of Wang Shang and Qing Yanzi. The team leader was momentarily stunned after looking at them. The cup in his hand fell to the ground. He turned and asked, "Who did you say his master was?" The man became a Taoist monk at Wudong for 3 years. Unexpectedly, when he returned home, he actually brought back a daughter-in-law for his parents. His parents were overjoyed. They almost took out the betrothal gifts. After the exchange conference concluded, Uncle Li specifically approved a few days off for Wang Shang. During these days, Wang Shang took his senior sister home to visit his parents. As expected, his parents were very accepting of this future daughter-in-law. His father even pulled Wang Shang aside in secret and asked him how far things had progressed with his senior sister, offering to help prepare the betrothal gifts if needed. Wang Shang reassured his father with a smile, saying they had plenty of time to handle everything. "I'll do my best to make sure you get to hold your grandson." During this period of time, Wang Shang has been living a very comfortable life. The only thing that isn't quite perfect is receiving 4,000 text messages every night. The constant bombardment has made it completely impossible for him to get a good night's sleep. After saying goodbye to his parents, Wang Shang and senior sister finally returned to Wudong. Seeing the two of them come back, before long, the Wudong disciples started discussing amongst themselves. "Aren't those senior brother Fei Yu and senior sister Bu Yu? I once heard senior brother Ing Long mention it. They were incredibly impressive during the exchange event." It turns out that a few days ago, Zhou Long and his group had already returned, and they spread news of the exchange event all over Wudong Mountain. Now, every Taoist temple on the mountain is aware. They all know about Wang Shang and senior sister's cultivation levels. However, even with that being the case, Wang Shang still wouldn't see himself as superior to others. After all, everyone here follows the path of cultivation, even if in his past life he had endured the arrogance of many great masters. In this lifetime, he has no desire to become the kind of cultivator he once despised the most. But when the two returned to their residence, the master, however, asked with a serious expression, "During this trip to Mount Mao, didn't I remind you both to keep a low profile?" After hearing this, the senior sister immediately cowered behind Wang Shang in fear. Wang Shang gave an awkward smile. Just as he was about to explain the reason to his master, he noticed his master suddenly chuckle, then placed a hand firmly on his shoulder, and said, "Well done. Although we are merely guests staying at Wudong, and do not belong to the legacy of the true martial emperor, we are still considered cultivators of Wudong Mountain. This time, you didn't bring shame to your master. However, it's still necessary to quickly settle your mind next. Continue to focus on your cultivation in the mountains. Junior brotherly brought some items over yesterday. Among them are 2 rather remarkable objects. Consider them as a reward for the 2 of you on this journey. I still need to head to the meditation chamber at Taiha Palace. I'll bring back dinner for you both in the evening." With that, Qing Yanzi turned and walked away. At that moment, Wang Shang suddenly noticed. It had been several days since they last met. Why does it feel like the master is about to break through again? After that, the 2 of them returned to the house. They began to examine the items sent by Uncle Li. Perhaps it was to express gratitude towards them for their contributions during the exchange conference. Uncle Li specifically prepared gifts for Wang Shang and senior sister, putting in considerable effort. Among the gifts prepared for him, it was obvious that a lot of thought had gone into them. This ancient sword named 1 yuan looks ordinary at first glance, However, with just a bit of practice, one can sense the sword's hidden energy. It is clearly a weapon crafted specifically for sword cultivators. Though it lacks the intricacy of Lu Yunji's golden threaded jade robe, and the mystique of Shi Qinzhang's crescent moon black jade, it is still a rare and valuable treasure. As compensation for Mao Shan's efforts this time, it seems reasonable. After testing the sword for a while, Wang Shang returned to the room and handed the sword to his senior sister for her to examine. She took the sword and gently ran her fingers over it, but she shook her head in disapproval. Upon seeing this, Wang Shang quickly reassured his senior sister to not worry. I would never intentionally use this sword to take someone's life. Wang Shang understood that the sword master, his senior sister, was worried. She must be concerned that this sword might disrupt his state of mind. Then he saw his senior sister rummage through the box once more. She took out a finely crafted jade stone and handed it to Wang Shang. Wang Shang quickly waved his hand and said, "Senior sister, I already have this sword in my possession. This calming and soul-stabilizing jade pendant should undoubtedly be yours." Who would have thought? Senior sister sent over a meme that screamed, "I am invincible under heaven." It was a sticker she used to express herself. She intended to give him this jade pendant, but Wang Shang still waved his hand and declined. "This is a gift from your martial uncle. How could I possibly accept it?" Seeing Wang Shang refuse, senior sister immediately put on a pitiful expression on her face. Tears were welling up and ready to fall from her eyes. How could Wang Shang possibly handle it? He quickly said, "Senior sister, wait for me for a moment." Then he rushed out of the room. Before long, he came back again. Blushing deeply, he handed a flute to senior sister, explaining that he originally planned to wait until senior sister's birthday to give it to her as a gift, but now he decided to bring it out first. "Senior sister, do you want to give me something in return? You must accept the gift I give you." The senior sister happily took the flute. After taking a short break, their days gradually returned to peace. At present, what Wang Shang needs to do is strive to achieve raising his own cultivation level to the embryo formation realm within a year. He also wanted to experience what it means to abstain from eating entirely. However, this tranquil life did not last for very long. They hadn't even been back to the mountain for 1 month. Uncle Li appeared once again with a face full of worry, and rushed to their small courtyard, shouting loudly for senior brother Qingyanzi, claiming that malicious spirits were causing harm, and begging his senior brother for help. Upon hearing about the presence of a ghost, Wang Shang's face lit up with curiosity, while his senior sister turned pale with fear. When night arrived, Wang Shang went to bed as usual, but in the middle of the night, he woke up, only to realize that his senior sister was sleeping right next to him. Wang Shang's face turned bright red. With a jolt, he was about to sit up, but was stopped by his senior sister, who grabbed him. At this moment, his senior sister was also looking at him with a flushed face. Then she motioned toward the window beside them. Wang Shang listened to the howling wind outside, and immediately understood that his senior sister was scared by the wind. So he lay down again, tucked the quilt around his senior sister, reassured her not to be afraid. "Go to sleep, I have to get up early tomorrow to hit the road." Then, under Wang Shang's comforting words, his senior sister finally closed her eyes, and peacefully drifted off to sleep. Looking at his sleeping senior sister, Wang Shang thought about what had happened during the day, when their martial uncle came to ask for their help in capturing a ghost. The way she cowered behind him in fear was unmistakable. Even he hadn't expected this. A cultivator at the core formation stage like her would actually be afraid of ghosts. Suddenly, Wang Shang remembered something his master once told him. Back then, in order to get her to speak, his master had tried using ghost stories as a form of shock therapy. The result was that she nearly withdrew into complete silence, and she ended up developing a fear of ghosts. This fear hasn't gone away even to this day, and now, it can still frighten her to the point of being on edge at every little sound. It's imaginable just how strong the concoction master used back then must have been. However, comforting the panicked senior sister at this moment is also the responsibility of him as the junior brother. Have you ever seen a Taoist catching ghosts like this? Holding a golden statue of Buddha in the left hand, gripping a door god's portrait in the right hand, with a crucifix and garlic hanging around his neck, proudly calling it a fusion of East and West. But in reality, he didn't want to do it this way either. It turns out these items were given to Wang Shang before his departure. They were a gift from his senior sister. After all, it was a token of her care. How could Wang Sheng bear to throw them away? So he decided to bring them along, and followed Uncle Li to the destination of this trip. What he didn't expect was that this place turned out to be Uncle Li's family home in the mortal world. No wonder Uncle Li had been acting so secretive before. It does have a bit of a feel of using his position for personal gain. Before the ceremony and rituals began, Wang Sheng also learned that the owner of this household was named Li Shishan. He was the elder brother of Uncle Li from the Wudong sect. Over the past few years, he had been providing financial support to Wudong. As a result, Wudong had tacitly allowed them to assist in exorcising ghosts. However, what puzzled Wang Sheng was, despite Uncle Li's obvious wealth, why did he still choose to renounce the secular world and become a Taoist practitioner? Could it be that he had encountered some kind of misfortune, and thus became disillusioned with worldly affairs? Soon, the senior uncle began the ritual to perform the incantation. Blessings from the 5 deities. The skies are clear and the earth is bright. Guardians stand steadfast on both sides. Hasten to drive away the demonic spirits from this place. As soon as those words left his lips, Wang Sheng and Zhou Yinglong transformed into 2 streams of golden light and disappeared. It turns out that before exorcising the spirits, Uncle Li had already discussed and planned everything with them. What came before was just a display to set the stage. As for him and senior brother Zhou, they were the main force in actually dealing with the ghosts. This arrangement was primarily due to people's understanding of cultivators still being stuck on what they've seen in movies. Thus, even though the disciples were the ones doing the actual work, the praise and recognition still needed to be attributed to the master. At this moment, Wang Sheng opened the door to a bedroom. A surge of dark energy came rushing out from inside, and immediately, 2 pairs of blood-red eyes emerged from the darkness. 2 spirits suddenly appeared in front of Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng's face remained calm and composed. He formed a hand seal with precision, chanting incantations under his breath, emitting a dazzling radiance. In an instant, he had cleansed the room of all spirits. Moments later, Wang Sheng stepped outside to meet senior brother Zhou. Senior brother Zhou remarked. He had walked around the area, encountering more than 20 spirits along the way. The situation with Wang Sheng was quite similar. This made senior brother Zhou feel very puzzled. Could it be that the feng shui arrangement here backfired? As he spoke about this, senior brother Zhou seemed to have realized something. But just as he was about to say it out loud, Wang Sheng motioned for him to stay silent. Be cautious, walls may have ears. Let's not discuss this for now. We should go meet up with the martial uncle. No matter what happens, this place can still be considered as the home of the senior uncle. If someone truly is causing trouble behind the scenes, they can't just stand by and do nothing. Meanwhile, senior Uncle Li was at a loss for words, still holding up his sword and performing the ritual. After all, everyone around was watching him closely. He couldn't just stop whenever he wanted. In his heart, he was wondering why it was taking so long to just expel a ghost. Why hasn't it returned yet? Are those 2 little fellows really reliable? Fortunately, at this moment, Wang Sheng and senior brother Zhou finally came back. Uncle Li let out a long sigh of relief. He turned and asked the elder brother to prepare a quiet room for them, so they could take a moment to restore their energy. Before long it was already evening. Wang Sheng talked to his uncle about the situations they encountered today, and shared his own speculations. It is suspected that there might be other cultivators causing trouble. Upon hearing this, Uncle Li furrowed his brows and said, other cultivators. This could be quite troublesome. As a reborn individual, Wang Sheng, benefiting from the knowledge gained in his previous life, his current understanding is even broader than that of Uncle Li. Naturally, he is also aware of some of the darker aspects within the cultivation world. What is happening now might be due to the wealth of the Li family, which has possibly attracted the greed of some demonic cultivators. Or perhaps Li Shishan had offended someone, which brought about retaliation from a dark cultivator. At this moment, Uncle Li, who had been pondering fruitlessly, finally raised his head. He looked at Wang Sheng and said, Feiyu, based on your perspective, what do you think we should do? Wang Sheng thought for a moment. If we were to suddenly expose the truth, I'm afraid it might provoke them into a desperate move. How about we do it this way, and then proceed like that? Half an hour later, Uncle Li and his elder brother were strolling in the manor. While chatting, he asked his brother, have you offended anyone in the past few years? Li Shishan said he had just been staying at home. I haven't offended anyone. After hearing this, Uncle Li urged him to think carefully. It seems that now someone might be trying to harm his entire family. But Li Shishan still insisted that it was absolutely not the case. Meanwhile, Wang Shang was inside the room channeling his true energy. He was eavesdropping on their conversation. And from their discussion, he learned that the Li family might have done something unethical in the past. The estate's feng shui and the monkhood of the uncle seemed to be events that took place over a decade ago. Could these incidents somehow be connected? The next day, after dealing with the restless spirit, Uncle Li prepared to return to the mountain to report back. He told the eldest brother to notify him if anything came up. However, when night fell, Wang Sheng and senior brother Zhou returned to the Li family estate. It turned out they had pretended to leave earlier. Their intention was to make the other side lower their guard. Then they planned to come back at night and lie in wait. Senior brother Zhou asked Wang Sheng how long they might have to wait. Wang Sheng suggested it could be until midnight. He explained that midnight was when the yang energy was at its weakest. It is also the time when the evil cultivators of the yang ghost are most confident. The family has a long-standing history and a solid foundation. They have both housekeepers and security guards. In addition, there is a comprehensive surveillance system in place. It provides complete and seamless coverage. Even so, the number of wandering spirits they expelled today amounts to 70 or 80 in total, which clearly couldn't have been accomplished in just a day or two. If it weren't for external interference, there is no reason to leave behind any trace. Therefore, the culprit who released the ghost is most likely an insider. That being said, the person who unleashed the ghost acted with malicious intent. This method of using wandering spirits to drain human vitality, wiping out an entire family through sinister and immoral acts, is utterly unforgivable. At this moment, senior brother Zhou asked Wang Sheng again, "We'll just wait here. Does it make any sense?" Wang Sheng indicated that if there's a traitor among us, it would be unwise to drag this out for too long. It should probably happen today. Now it all depends on who has more patience between us. With that, Wang Sheng spoke. He sat cross-legged and began to release his spiritual awareness, engulfing the entire Li family estate. Seeing this, senior brother Zhou couldn't help but sigh. He hadn't expected Fei Yu's spiritual sense to be so sensitive, to the point where it could cover the entire residence. Let alone the fact that my current cultivation level is no match for his. Even at the same level, I might not be able to achieve that. I fear I wouldn't be capable of doing so. Since that's the case, then let me ensure Fei Yu's safety myself. Suddenly, Wang Sheng's spiritual sense detected something. Someone was heading toward the pavilion where Li Shishan was resting. At this moment, outside Li Shishan's pavilion, a security guard was holding a flashlight. He was sneakily looking around, acting suspiciously. Then he reached into his pocket and took out a small cauldron. Biting down on his own finger, he let the blood drip onto the small cauldron. In the very next moment, a dark green mist began to rise from within the cauldron, transforming into a massive and menacing ghost, hovering above the security guard's head. Shortly after, both the man and the ghost started heading toward the attic where Li Shishan was. Just as the ghost extended its sharp claws, preparing to break down the door directly, the front gate suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light. The vengeful spirit was wounded by the golden light. It let out a piercing and sorrowful scream. The security guard was also taken aback. It turned out to be the Wudong talisman of blessings and fortune. Li Shishan had indeed made thorough preparations for defense. However, while the talisman can ward off spirits, can it stop me, a living person? The vitality of heaven and earth was being restored. The gun-wielding officer who refused to believe in the supernatural, encountering a true cultivator capable of practicing immortality, but mistaking them for a common con artist, ended up handcuffing them on the spot, only to stumble upon a real ghost, and nearly getting scared out of his wits. It was Wang Sheng's first time descending the mountain to exorcise evil spirits, and he managed to vanquish 70 to 80 wandering souls. Yet no matter how powerful the talismans and spells, they can only guard against vengeful ghosts, but are powerless against traitors within. Just as the security guard was about to push the door open, a glint of cold light suddenly flashed. Wang Sheng thrust his sword toward the security guard, but to his surprise, the security guard, thinking quickly in the moment, slammed the door open, dodging the sword strike, and the vengeful spirit that had been floating above the guard's head had now appeared behind Wang Sheng's back. He raised his enormous fist and swung it fiercely toward Wang Shang. But what he struck was nothing more than an afterimage. In the next moment, Wang Shang flashed in front of the vengeful spirit. Without hesitation, he drew his sword and slashed toward the spirit's neck. A metallic clang echoed in the air. The strike felt as if it had hit solid rock. It failed to cause the spirit even the slightest harm. Suddenly, a sound came from Li Shishan's room. Wang Shang immediately realized something was wrong. Without delay, he stepped on the ghost's back. He leaped directly to the second floor. At that moment, Li Shishan was groggily waking up. The security guard grabbed a small cauldron and was ready to attack him. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Wang Shang stepped in just in time to save him. But the security guard wasn't planning to give up. He leapt backward and threw several poison needles at Li Shishan again. At this life-or-death moment, Wang Shang activated his true energy to stop the poison needles. With a swift swing of the long sword, he knocked all the poison needles to the ground. Watching the needles fall, Wang Shang noticed that these needles actually contained sinister dark energy. Even the slightest contact with the old man's face would likely lead to a situation where even a deity couldn't save him. This dark cultivator is truly ruthless. Meanwhile, the security guard held a small cauldron in his hand and said fiercely to the Wudong disciple not to meddle in matters that didn't concern him. Wang Shang raised his sword and pointed it at him. He summoned a vengeful spirit to harm others, using threats or facing execution as punishment. Seeing that harsh words had no effect, the security guard decisively took action, engaging in a fierce struggle with Wang Shang. But after exchanging a few moves, the security guard suddenly stopped and began chanting an incantation. In the next moment, the vengeful spirit crashed through the window, rushed directly toward Li Shishan with great force. Wang Shang noticed the situation and couldn't help but think that this person would rather drag me down, just to let the vengeful ghost take Li Shishan's life. What kind of grudge exists between them? But no matter what, saving someone is the most urgent task at hand. In an instant, Wang Shang appeared beside Li Shishan, thrusting his sword into the vengeful ghost's stomach, forcing it to retreat. At the same time, I was also calculating in my mind about the unusual feeling I had just noticed. And that was why I rushed over here. Senior brother Joe must have noticed it too and is probably on his way. If that's the case, then before senior brother arrives, I'll stall this person in ghost for now. Meanwhile, the security guard, seeing Wang Shang step in front of Li Shishan again to shield him, decided not to stay back any longer, and immediately commanded the vengeful ghost to charge at Wang Shang once more. Wang Shang refused to back down. He moved with a 7-star step to evade the ghost's attacks. At the same time, he looked for an opportunity to strike back. Suddenly, Wang Shang leapt into the air. He gathered all his true energy into his sword. With one slash, he brought the sword down on the ghost. The ghost was split cleanly in half. A loud bang echoed in the air. The small cauldron in the security guard's hands exploded. Seeing this, Wang Shang reacted immediately, pressing the advantage, unleashing 3 streaks of sword energy. The security guard couldn't dodge in time, was sent flying instantly. As the security guard hit the ground, the vengeful spirit gradually dissipated. But unexpectedly, the security guard, now at the end of the road, actually sacrificed his own soul and merged it with the vengeful spirit. Suddenly, the vengeful spirit's body expanded several times its original size. Sharp spikes also grew out from its body. A cluster of skulls surrounded it in the air. Seeing this, Wang Shang couldn't help but think to himself, just how many living souls did that evil cultivator use to forge this terrifying ghost? At the same time as this was happening, senior brother Joe finally arrived with the security team. He shouted into the house, calling out, "Feiyu, are you all right in there?" Upon hearing the sound, Wang Shang quickly leaped out of the window. He then tossed the Li family fan to senior brother Joe, instructing him to safeguard the fan and to escort the Li family far away from this place. Immediately after, he swung his sword at the vengeful ghost. However, the strength of the Wen Yuan sword doesn't lie in being a ghost-slaying weapon. Against such spirits, its effectiveness is limited. It would be less effective compared to methods like those of Shi Qianzhang and Lu Yunji, who employ talismans with better results. Relying on talismans proves to be a more practical approach. Thinking of this, Wang Shang immediately came up with a plan. He activated the 7-star footwork technique, dodging the attacks of the vengeful ghost as he moved, while shouting for his senior brother. Hurry and give me the talisman from the master uncle. Zhou Long, upon hearing this, quickly started searching for the talismans. Li Shirshan also turned around and ordered his subordinates. Go and bring all the talismans posted at other locations over here immediately. At this moment, Wang Sheng faced the fierce and increasingly aggressive ghost, and had a strategy to deal with it. Since it couldn't be killed, then he would exhaust it to its end. He immediately employed the 7-star footwork, creating several afterimages, and activated the 7-star sword array, trapping the ghost in the middle. Using spell techniques to drain its soul energy, trapped their movements using the sword formation. At this moment, senior brother Zhou finally delivered the talismans. Wang Sheng swiftly caught them in one move. He prepared to exorcise the ghosts within the mansion. The talismans were used to banish the spirits. Wang Sheng tossed the talisman bag in his hand. Countless talismans flew out in all directions. Wang Sheng directed his sword energy, powered by true essence, through the talismans, stacking buffs for added power. Aimed directly at the fierce ghost at the center of the grand formation. Launched an attack with the sword and talisman. Then the talisman struck the vengeful spirit. It ignited into roaring flames. Until the very end, the vengeful spirit's entire body was engulfed in golden flames. It let out agonizing wails. Wang Sheng observed this. He nodded slightly in approval. The talisman proved to be effective. The sinister cultivator lurking in the attic. It seems that consciousness must already be lost. Otherwise, there's no way the vengeful spirit would leave Master Li alone. Since that's the case, as long as we keep wearing it down like this, we will definitely be able to eliminate the vengeful spirit. However, just as Wang Sheng was locked in a struggle with the vengeful spirit, something unexpected happened on senior brother's side. A large group of police officers armed with guns suddenly stormed in, claiming they had received an alarm that someone was plotting harm against old Mr. Li. Arriving to investigate, Wang Sheng sensed these people through his spiritual perception. He urgently shouted for his senior brother. Stop them. Don't let them get involved. Give me 15 more minutes. This thing won't hold out much longer. Meanwhile, Li Shirshan, standing at the door, was explaining to Captain Pang. There really is a ghost. They genuinely weren't lying. But the chubby captain refused to believe it at all. He bluntly said, "What era are we living in now? Where could such things as ghosts even exist?" Just then, there was a sudden whooshing sound. Zhou Long suddenly appeared right beside him. He awkwardly smiled and explained, "Officer, my junior brother only needs 20 minutes to banish the vengeful spirit. Everyone, please stay calm." But the chubby captain still assumed he was just a con artist, persuading the old man to get a few people on board to guard the side entrance. He was on the verge of storming in directly. Zhou Long quickly stepped aside in an attempt to stop him. But who would have expected this chubby captain not only to ignore the warning? He even drew the gun from his waist and pressed the barrel right against his forehead. Then, using the excuse of obstructing official duties, he had him temporarily detained. And the reason this chubby captain dared to act this way, it's because ever since the resurgence of vitality, the government of Dahua Nation issued an official order. Police officers are required to carry firearms while on duty. Under special circumstances, they are permitted to open fire. Zhou Long, seeing he couldn't stop these people, could only let out a helpless sigh, then let them go in and take a look for themselves. But as soon as these officers stepped through the door, they were so terrified by the scene before them that they collapsed to the ground. They screamed in fear, shouting there really are ghosts. As soon as the vengeful ghost caught sight of the living person, it immediately picked up a rock and hurled it in their direction. Just as the rock was about to hit the group, Zhou Long, standing outside the door, quickly broke free from the handcuffs. In a swift move, he darted in front of the chubby captain and performed a Tai Chi push-hand technique. Using the force against itself, he redirected the massive rock towards another direction, then turned around and said with a smile, "Officers, the vengeful spirit is enraged. Please make sure not to provoke or agitate him." Upon hearing this, the chubby captain was completely stunned. His subordinates asked him what they should do next. This situation has already gone beyond their ability to handle. Forcing himself to remain calm, the chubby captain said, "Why panic? First, contact headquarters. Report the situation happening here. Everyone else, stay at your posts. Coordinate with the Taoist inside to attack the vengeful spirit." Zhou Long, upon hearing this, quickly spoke up to stop him, saying, "Hold on. Ordinary bullets can't harm a vengeful spirit. They will only provoke its ferocity. Haunted houses are places of dark energy. To dispel it, you'll need something filled with strong positive energy. Can we get some rooster's blood for this? Preferably the blood of a black rooster. The chubby captain, hearing this, immediately ordered someone to find it. But it didn't take long before Wang Shang ran out of talismans here and saw the vengeful spirit attacking again, leaving him momentarily without a solution. Fortunately, at this moment, senior brother Joe threw a large amount of rooster blood, hitting the vengeful spirit squarely. Right after that, the thick scales on the vengeful spirit's body started to dissolve, turning into strands of faint smoke. It became clear that rooster blood did indeed work. Everyone was extremely delighted. However, the vengeful spirit had not been completely defeated yet. Instead, its ferocity was fully unleashed due to being injured. It charged straight toward them. In a moment of urgency, Zhou Englong decisively took action. He summoned the manifestation of the true martial emperor to block the attack from the vengeful spirit, and sent it flying away. But he himself was also knocked back several meters. But at least it created an opportunity for his junior brother. Wang Shang suddenly leapt into the air, gathering all his true essence onto the sword. He executed the 7 stars sword technique, aiming at the ghost's vital points. After completing the entire sword technique, 7 streaks of sword energy on the ghost's body instantly connected. Then it suddenly erupted, emitting a dazzling white light. The ghost gradually dissipated within the white light. But not long after the ghost was eliminated, Wang Shang had overexerted his inner true essence and momentarily lost consciousness from physical exhaustion. Although he didn't remain unconscious for long, he still felt somewhat drained after waking up. After adjusting his breath slightly, his condition gradually improved. Through this intense battle, he gained unexpected rewards. Now, he was already standing at the threshold of the core formation stage, and could consider this journey worthwhile. But just at that moment, there was suddenly the sound of knocking coming from outside the house. Wang Sheng opened the door to take a look. It turned out to be 2 strangers he had never met before. The 2 introduced themselves. They were specifically assigned to handle incidents of malicious spirits causing harm. Members of a special investigation team. The woman was named Mu Yu. The man was called Dinyo. Moreover, Mu Yu happened to be a fan of Wang Sheng. After receiving Wang Sheng's approval, he immediately picked up his phone and took a few photos with Wang Sheng. Then, at Wang Sheng's reminder, he suddenly remembered there was still an important matter to address. Clearing his throat lightly, he explained that it was actually our team leader who wanted to have a conversation with you. Please wait for a moment, someone will send you a video call shortly. I'll wait outside for now. Once your call is over, just call me directly. Sure enough, it didn't take long. Wang Sheng received a video call. But when he clicked to answer it, and saw the appearance of the person on the other side, he was so surprised that he opened his mouth wide and called out, "Mistress, did you know that those monks who have already taken vows can actually still get married and have children? For instance, the monks of Wudong Mountain are allowed to do so." Looking at the woman on the other side of the video, Wang Sheng recalled the Chongyang festival during his first year on the mountain. That was when his master had pulled him to drink for the first time. The drunken master, reeking of alcohol, told him in a slurred voice, "If you ever want to marry a wife, then marry a wife. If you want to have children, then have children. I am quite open-minded as your teacher. As long as you remain devoted to your wife, everything will be just fine." Wang was puzzled as to why his master suddenly brought this up. It was then, emboldened by the alcohol, that the master revealed a story from his past. It turned out that Qing Lianzi had once been in love with a woman. However, he faced opposition from his master. At the time, he had intended to plead earnestly with his master. But the woman had a fiery temperament, and unexpectedly left without a word. She vanished for over a decade without any news. It wasn't until the year before last that she sent 2 photos through someone. Only then did Qing Yanzi realize he actually had a child, who was about the same age as Wang Sheng and his peers. The woman standing before them now was the same person as the one in the photos, his master's wife. Wang Sheng noticed the other person remained silent. He called out to her as master's wife with a hint of hesitation. The woman on the other side of the video let out a soft sigh. "You can call me Auntie. But there's something I'd like to ask for your help with. Can you deliver a message for me to your master? Tell him that, if he still cares about his daughter, he should come to see me as soon as possible." Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng immediately thought that the young junior might have encountered some cultivators. Without hesitation, he immediately pulled out his phone. He dialed his master's number. Then he turned on the speakerphone. Feeling delighted, he thought to himself that as long as they could talk directly, the master would surely have a way to win back the mistress's heart. But it didn't take long before a familiar message came from the other end of the line. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable." Wang Sheng froze for a moment and quickly tried to explain to the mistress. "It might be that the signal over at master's place isn't very good. Let me try to get in touch with senior sister. Please don't worry just yet." With that, Wang Sheng sent a message to senior sister. He asked senior sister where master had gone. Senior sister quickly replied with an emoji, indicating that master had left a letter and then disappeared, without saying anything to anyone. "I'll take a picture of the letter and send it to you. See for yourself." When Wang Sheng read the content of the letter, it turned out that his master was about to advance to the Golden Core stage and needed to go into seclusion for a period of time. So he had gone to Zhengnan Mountain. He also mentioned that when he returned, he would help them show off and take them to new heights. Looking at the content of the letter, Wang Sheng could only feel utterly speechless. "Master, are you cursing me to die alone with this? The timing of your advancement is just too coincidental." Thinking of this, he let out a sigh. He briefly explained the situation to his senior sister. Then he stepped out of the house and asked Muyu when they would depart. "My senior sister will also be joining this mission. Let's head back to Wudan to pick her up first." At the same time, Wang Sheng was also thinking to himself. The master's wife and daughter were in trouble, so it was natural that his senior sister wouldn't stand idly by. Yet, the fact that the master's wife reached out to us on her own, it seems like things might actually be quite troublesome. But even if it means walking into a lion's den, I must bring the junior sister back safely. After that, the group prepared to head to Wudang Mountain to meet the senior sister. Wang Sheng also learned from Mao Yu that the father and elder brother of that security guard had tragically died in a mining accident years ago, since that mining area was owned by the Li family. Therefore, he then set his revenge target on Li Shirshan. At that moment, Mao Yu suddenly received news. It was a message from a colleague. Just a short while ago, the security guard who had intended to kill someone was found dead, and the way he died was extremely gruesome. Wang Sheng stared at the photo of the guard's death and noticed the mark on his arm resembling a taiji symbol. He deduced that the guard most likely died from the yin-yang blood-devouring goo. This type of goo worm operates with one representing yin and the other yang. Mutual perception. Ancient records mention they can enhance the spiritual awareness of the person they target, and can even cause someone's death from a great distance. There's also this symbol. It appears to resemble a taiji pattern, but that is not actually the case. It is highly likely to be the emblem of the organization behind him. Therefore, he suggested Ma Yue investigate starting from this angle, from the yin-yang gu tai chi pattern, and the wooden top magical artifact he had destroyed earlier. These three items are enough to prove that a certain dark cultivation group has grown into an organized force. It seems they need to quickly establish contact with the major sects. After hearing this, Mu Yu also realized the gravity of the situation. Hurriedly asked Wang Sheng to wait for a moment, as he was going to notify his colleagues right away. As for Wang Sheng, he remained standing in place. His expression was serious. After all, it involved secrets of his past life. He couldn't directly point it out entirely. He just hoped that this time, they could prevent any mishaps. After all, what they were facing this time was the Yin-Yang sect. In his past life, it was an evil organization that almost overturned the entire world. Wang Sheng couldn't afford to be careless. The next day, Wang Sheng successfully received his senior sister, before officially setting out to rescue the junior sister. Inside the car, Mao Yu stared at Mu Wanxian with sparkling eyes, remaining silent. The fairy is truly stunning. She has such a great figure. Her skin is so fair, absolutely flawless from every angle. Noticing that Mao Yu's enthusiasm was getting a bit excessive, Wang Sheng quickly clarified, "Senior sister. She is an associate of our master's wife. She's not a bad person." The senior sister made a sound of acknowledgement while eating. These words did deal a bit of a blow to Mao Yu. However, along the way, Wang Sheng finally managed to learn from Mao Yu the true identity of that special investigation group. It turns out that in ancient times, heroes disrupted laws with their martial prowess, challenging the established order with sheer defiance. Now in the era of cultivation, with civilization integrating into modern secular society, naturally, a privileged organization is needed to maintain order in the world. The Special Investigation Unit, on the other hand, is led by the Master's wife. It is considered one of the privileged departments established specifically for the cultivation community in Dahua Nation, designed to serve as one of the specialized authorities for this purpose. Its primary responsibility is to oversee and inspect the activities of the cultivation community, and to mediate conflicts between the cultivation world and the secular society. However, due to the nature of this incident, which involved their team leader's own daughter, they found it difficult to say much about it, and hoped that Wang Sheng wouldn't take it to heart. Wang Sheng smiled and indicated it was no problem. This matter is also a personal issue for us. After all, she is not just the daughter of your team leader. She is also our junior sister. Hearing this, Mu Yu and Ding Yo were momentarily stunned. After realizing what was said, they quickly figured out the relationship between their team leader and Taoist Qing Lianzi. Mu Yu was beyond thrilled. Who would have thought there would be such a shocking revelation? Not long after, the group finally arrived at the location for this mission. It also happened to be the university where the junior sister was enrolled. From this point on, it would be up to Wang Sheng and the senior sister. The young man had just started college and already became the enemy of all the male students. All because he not only had a beautiful senior sister as his official girlfriend, but also drew the attention of an attractive upperclassman who openly pursued him. According to the information provided by Mao Yu, a cultivator had infiltrated the university campus, spreading cultivation techniques in a manner resembling a pyramid scheme. The junior sister was one of the many students who had been drawn in. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth has just begun to awaken. The practice of cultivation remains a secret to the outside world. Promoting cultivation on a large scale at this time makes it hard not to suspect ulterior motives. What Wang Sheng and his companions need to do is to pose as a couple of exchange students and enter the campus, to uncover the whereabouts of the opposing cultivators, and rescue their junior sister. Shortly after moving in, the senior sister sent a message. He discovered traces of the force lingering in the junior sister's room. It was likely caused by Fulu. He asked Wang Sheng what they should do next. Wang Sheng advised the senior sister to avoid alerting anyone for now. If possible, try to create an opportunity first to get acquainted with the junior sister. The senior sister quickly sent over an emoji. It seemed like she was getting into character. She was thoroughly enjoying herself. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng started looking at the junior sister's photos. The junior sister's name is Shirwan. She is currently a sophomore in college. Her major is in the field of economics and trade. According to the information provided by Mao Yu, it appears that a cultivator has infiltrated the university campus to spread their teachings. The junior sister was one of those deceived. This even caused a conflict between her and the mistress. They completely lost contact. Perhaps because of this, the mistress had no choice but to reach out to the master. I hope he can help bring back the junior sister. Afterward, Wang Sheng and the senior sister went to the student cafeteria. They initially planned for the senior sister to approach and start a conversation. But this posed a challenge for the senior sister, who wasn't good with words. Wang Sheng reassured the senior sister not to feel pressured. She's the master's daughter. Just don't think of her as an outsider. Suddenly, Wang Sheng noticed something. The junior sister's body was already showing signs of true essence. This kind of true essence, his true essence from cultivation in his past life using unorthodox techniques, seemed quite similar. The energy he had cultivated felt strikingly alike. It appeared that things were far from straightforward. So, he informed his senior sister that the plan had changed. He decided to try approaching the junior sister on his own first. Hearing this, the senior sister let out a sigh of relief. Wang Sheng also turned and slowly moved closer to the junior sister. He was just about to strike up a conversation. But suddenly, he heard someone calling his name from behind. Startled, his phone slipped from his hand and fell to the ground. Wang Sheng turned his head to look. It was his former senior, Xin Xianling. He couldn't help but freeze for a moment. To his surprise, in the next second, the senior suddenly threw herself into his arms. Her face was full of excitement as she exclaimed, "It's really you. What are you doing here?" Witnessing this scene, the senior sister's face instantly darkened. At the same time, the boys around were all staring at Wang Sheng in shock. Then it turned into anger. Who is this person anyway? Even Senior Shin has time to get herself a little boyfriend. I just saw that guy, and it seemed like he already has a girlfriend. Unacceptable, take him down. The boys nearby were about to rush in and beat Wang Sheng up. Senior quickly explained, don't make a scene. He's my junior from high school. He once saved my life. It turns out that in his previous life, the senior became disabled due to a car accident. But after being reborn, Wang Sheng appeared at the scene in advance. He helped her get through the crisis, even though he had to take a bit of a risk. Now, seeing her healthy and well, Wang Sheng felt it was completely worth it. At that moment, Wang Sheng suddenly placed his hand on the senior's shoulder and greeted her with a smile. The senior's face turned slightly red. But in truth, Wang Sheng was not being inappropriate. Instead, he was sensing the spiritual energy on the senior. After discovering that the senior had no spiritual energy, he confirmed that the matter with the junior sister was unrelated. At that moment, someone nearby suddenly asked, "Classmate, you dropped your phone." Wang Sheng turned his head to look. To his surprise, it was the junior sister who had picked up the phone he had just dropped and handed it back to him. He quickly took the phone and said thank you. He enthusiastically expressed his gratitude to the student. "Is it convenient to add you on WeChat? As a token of appreciation, I'll treat you to a meal later." But the junior politely declined. Seeing this, the senior couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Could it be that you intentionally threw the phone behind her? Wang Sheng awkwardly smiled, quickly changed the subject, started introducing his girlfriend to the senior, hoped to let the two get to know each other. But the senior stared at him with a dark expression, as if saying, "Weren't you supposed to learn more about the junior? Who is this woman? Is the senior's status higher or the mentor's status higher? How should I communicate with her?" Wang Sheng was sweating all over his face. Tried to persuade the senior to calm down. Afterward, Wang Sheng led the senior schoolmate and the elder sister to the small grove. He briefly explained the situation to the senior schoolmate, indicating that he was here to investigate a few unstable individuals hiding on campus, hoping the senior schoolmate could provide some clues. The senior schoolmate, upon hearing about the unstable individuals, thought for a moment and felt that it was unlikely for such people to exist in the school. So Wang Sheng asked the senior schoolmate again, "Recently, has anyone ever invited you to join some kind of unusual club? Like one related to martial arts, magic, longevity, or even cultivating immortality?" When asked about this, the senior suddenly remembered a poster she had seen before. It seemed to be connected to what Wang Sheng was talking about. She immediately sent it over to Wang Sheng. It was a recruitment poster for a group called the Supernatural Inspiration Society. The poster was for recruiting new members. Wang Sheng looked at the slogans on it and felt that this was probably exactly what they were searching for. He immediately stood up from the ground. He told the senior that this would be enough. "I will arrange for someone to protect you in secret. From now on, just pretend you've never seen me or the senior." The senior nodded slightly. She watched Wang Sheng and the senior leave, but their departing figures looked unusually desolate. She wondered if that was the senior he kept mentioning in his texts. No wonder he seemed so content on the mountain. "If not for meeting your esteemed senior today, I really thought you were going to become a Taoist monk. The vital energy of heaven and earth has been restored. The era of universal cultivation has begun." But unexpectedly, even unspoken rules have spread into the world of cultivation. After learning about the information regarding the Supernatural Inspiration Club from the senior, Wang Sheng and the senior sister began their investigation. That very night, in the small grove outside the school, they started their exploration. A dozen or so students stood in a circle, surrounding a blonde-haired individual in the center. The blonde was still trying to brainwash them. "Don't think the membership fee is too expensive. Every endeavor requires some investment. Right now, you're investing in yourselves. Only in this way can you truly reach the pinnacle. Begin your journey of cultivation." At this moment, Wang Sheng and his senior sister were standing on a tree not far away, with their cultivation levels having increased. The earlier conversation, they heard everything clearly. Wang Sheng couldn't help but comment, "Are they spreading teachings or running a pyramid scheme?" The leader indeed possessed cultivation skills, but if it was merely about cultivation, these people technically hadn't broken any rules. After thinking it over, Wang Shang decided to send the photo first. Muyu suggested that they should look into it. At that moment, senior sister suddenly pointed out to Wang Shang to look over there. Wang Shang lifted his head and asked senior sister if there was something going on. Senior sister shook her head. Wang Shang looked in the direction senior sister had indicated with a puzzled expression. He saw the blonde-haired guy from earlier. At this moment, he was grinning mischievously while talking to a girl. Wang Shang listened to what he was saying. He was instantly left speechless. Is it possible that even cultivating now involves backdoor deals? After that, he instructed his senior sister to keep an eye on things here. He decided to follow and take a look. In no time, the blonde guy led the girl into a secluded alley. He reached out his inappropriate hand towards the girl, saying, "If you comply with my wishes, not only will the membership fee be waived, I can even offer you extra techniques and elixirs." This made the girl's face flush with embarrassment, feeling a bit hesitant. At that moment, an angry shout suddenly came from ahead saying, "Be quiet." A disgrace to the family. An embarrassment. An old man. With a face full of anger, he walked out of the narrow alley. The blonde-haired man quickly explained upon seeing this, "Second uncle. No, Elder Gu. This is the person I've just started seeing. I was thinking of bringing her over to meet you, sir." However, before he could finish speaking, another voice came from above. Who would have thought? Even an overage club has to follow shady unspoken rules. Wang Shang rushed over with his sword in hand, descending straight from the sky. The swift sword energy struck, instantly taking out the old man. Seeing this, the blonde guy was stunned. Even the crazy second uncle got taken down in an instant. Without hesitation, he turned and bolted away. At that moment, a cold glint of light flashed by. Wang Shang's sword was pressed against the yellow-haired man's neck. He demanded the yellow-haired man to spill the location of their hideout. The following morning, Wang Shang gave the yellow-haired man a brutal beating. He arrived at a small courtyard. Inside the courtyard, four elderly men and women were chatting and sipping tea. But just at that moment, Mr. Wang suddenly walked in, greeted the elders who had long exceeded their prime. "Good morning, everyone." Exposed their identity with just one sentence. The elderly men exchanged glances, and immediately worked together to lift the tea table, and hurled it straight at Mr. Wang. Unfazed, Mr. Wang slashed down with his sword, splitting the stone table into two halves. Immediately following, he unleashed several waves of sword energy, effortlessly taking down the three elderly men in an instant. At this moment, the elderly woman hiding in the back suddenly threw out a flame talisman, aiming it directly at Wang Shang. But unfortunately, it hit nothing more than Wang Shang's afterimage. In the next moment, Wang Shang appeared right behind her, striking her unconscious with a swift knife-hand blow. After dealing with the so-called four overaged elders, Wang Shang handed over the scene to Muyu. Once back at school, Muyu called again. She mentioned that those rogue cultivators had already been recruited. The founder of the overage club refers to themselves as the Flamekeeper. They hired over a dozen rogue cultivators to serve as guardians, and now they've made quite a name for themselves in the community. As for the junior sister, due to her wealthy family background, she plays the role of a kind of lucky charm or small treasure within the group. Wang Shang asked Muyu to send over their information, and requested a copy for himself. He would keep an eye on their movements. At the same time, he felt a bit puzzled. Organizations like the Sacred Flame Overage Society are practically criminal gangs with a monastic background. What exactly is their objective? Could it simply be a big financial scheme? But no matter what, he still needed to quickly pull his junior sister out of this quagmire. Otherwise, trouble would likely keep coming their way. Just as Wang Shang was lost in thought, a finger suddenly poked his face. Wang Shang turned his head and saw his senior sister pouting at him, as if to say that her junior brother was a bad guy, forbidding her from fighting. Wang Shang chuckled and placed a potato chip into his senior sister's mouth. It was about time for senior sister to find their junior sister. That evening, the two of them arranged to meet their junior sister, explained the general situation to her, and mentioned their identities. But the junior sister absolutely refused to believe it. "My father has been dead for 20 years. How could he possibly have any disciples?" Wang Shang didn't bother to explain further. He directly handed over the photo his master always kept close, and gave it to her. The photo depicted her and her mother. Then Wang Shang played a short clip for the junior sister. During the previous video call with the master's wife, the truth was revealed, and the young junior sister found it hard to accept. She ended up breaking down in tears with her face in her hands. Seeing this, the senior sister beside her panicked immediately. She had no idea how to comfort someone. Meanwhile, not far away in the bushes, a crossbow was aimed directly at them. With a swift sound, it was fired in their direction. Fortunately, the senior sister reacted just in time. With a casual wave, he effortlessly deflected it. Seeing that the attack failed, the man decisively fled. He wasted no time in retreating. Wang Sheng instructed his senior sister to protect the junior sister. He decided to give chase while secretly thinking to himself, "These elusive figures have finally lost their patience, haven't they?" As the energy of heaven and earth began to recover, the era of nationwide cultivation unfolded. Even cult-like organizations practicing demonic cultivation emerged, using the name of a student organization to recruit people at the university. Wang Sheng discovered and dismantled one of their hideouts. The junior apprentice sister was suddenly assassinated. When the mastermind finally revealed themselves, Wang Sheng pursued while taking action, and informed Mu Yu about the situation. Mu Yu received the message, and immediately ordered all teams to prepare for combat, blocking all exits of the campus, making sure the enemy would not escape. Before long, Wang Sheng unleashed a sword aura that knocked the opponent to the ground. But unexpectedly, as soon as the opponent got up, they immediately threw several poison needles at him. Wang Sheng waved his hand and easily deflected them. Yet wisps of toxic smoke began to rise from his hand. It turned out that the silver needles were poisoned. Right after that, the opponent shakily pulled out a pill and took it. He saw the opponent repeatedly taking out pills. There were poison darts capable of temporarily paralyzing someone at the half-step formation core stage, rendering them unable to move for a short period of time. Wang Sheng realized that this woman was no ordinary individual. He made up his mind to capture her at all costs, and extract any valuable information she might possess. Without hesitation, he instantly appeared behind the woman, and firmly grasped her by the neck with one hand, effortlessly lifting her off the ground. He crippled all her meridians and completely destroyed her cultivation. Then, with a casual motion, he tossed her onto the ground. The rest of the matter can be left to the master's wife. But at that moment, she suddenly sensed a wave of ominous energy. This was an aura that clashed with the Taoist techniques. Wang Sheng turned his head to look, and saw two masked figures, one tall and one short, appearing not far away, slowly making their way toward him. "This young man, this woman took something that rightfully belongs to us. Can you hand her over to us? We promise you won't regret it." Wang Sheng noticed the symbols on their necks. He immediately realized they were members of the Yin Yang sect. Without hesitation, he stepped in front of the woman to block them, and firmly replied no. Hearing this, the shorter man among the two scratched his head and asked, "Do you even realize that today you've crossed the people you should never offend?" With that said, the murderous aura surrounding the two began to materialize. It surged directly toward Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng refused to back down. He gathered a blade of sword energy to break it apart. Once again, he said coldly, "When I say no, it means no." As he spoke, sword energy radiated intensely around Wang Sheng. In an instant, it dispersed the encroaching murderous aura. This, in turn, piqued the interest of the tall man. He drove his sword into the ground, and without hesitation, charged forward, delivered a swift strike with a hand chop, landed on the afterimage of Wang Sheng. Failing with the first attack, the tall man immediately changed direction, and once again aimed a slash at Wang Sheng's true form. Wang Sheng hadn't expected that his opponent could actually keep up with his 7-star steps. It seemed the opponent wasn't just all talk. There was indeed some real skill in his hands. Wang Sheng quickly formed a sword gesture with his hand, unleashing several streaks of sword energy in retaliation. After exchanging a few moves, Wang Sheng quickly realized, if his opponent wasn't unarmed while facing him, he might truly find it hard to withstand the attacks now. However, while the two were locked in combat, Wang Sheng caught something in the corner of his eye. Another short man was unexpectedly preparing to take the woman away. Wang Sheng silently thought to himself, "This is bad." Immediately launched a fierce attack on the tall man, clearly adopting a stance aimed at deciding the outcome in a single move. The tall man indeed fell for the trap, started gathering strength for a powerful strike. At that moment, Wang Sheng took the opportunity to turn and charge toward the short man. The short man did not dare to take it head-on. Quickly turned around to block the attack. Was forced back several meters. Wang Sheng lifted the woman off the ground. Gazed at the two masked individuals standing before him. He sighed inwardly. Even during the dormant phase, it is possible to possess the abilities of the Qi formation stage. Masters from the Yin-Yang sect truly live up to their reputation. However, this woman is a crucial clue connected to the overaged society. I can't allow her to die here. At this moment, the tall man suddenly said, done playing around. Then, with a casual motion, he reached out. The sword that had been stuck in the ground earlier instantly unsheathed itself. It flew straight into his hand. He held the sword horizontally in front of him. He said coldly, let's make this quick. With that, he leaped into the air, swinging his sword in a single motion. The murderous aura transformed into 3 massive serpents rushing toward Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng quickly picked up the woman and dodged in haste. At the same time, he realized that the blade worked in harmony with the malevolent energy. It couldn't be directly confronted. But while an open attack is easy to avoid, hidden threats are much harder to guard against. Just as Wang Sheng evaded the tall man's assault. But then, he was suddenly ambushed. It turned out to be the short man, that cunning trickster, who launched a sneak attack on him. Wang Sheng couldn't dodge in time. He had no choice but to take it head-on. He was unexpectedly blasted straight away. At that moment, the tall man suddenly appeared right in front of him, and swung down fiercely toward his face. Just as the situation reached a critical point, a branch infused with true energy suddenly flew in, struck the tall man's hand that was about to swing the sword. Then, a pair of pale, jade-like hands appeared in front of the tall man's chest. With a single palm strike, directly sent the tall man flying backward. It turned out that the senior sister had arrived. Wang Sheng finally felt a sense of relief. He took the branch that the senior sister handed over, and indicated that they were the villains. Hearing this, the senior sister's gaze instantly became sharp, rushed forward and started fighting directly. Used Tai Chi moves. The right hand seemed to draw a Tai Chi pattern, blocked the deadly attack from the short man. At this moment, the tall man behind unexpectedly attempted a sneak attack. Wang Sheng, holding a tree branch, dashed forward. The tall man hurriedly drew his sword, swung back at Wang Sheng's afterimage. Immediately, the two became entangled in a fight. There was no longer anything to worry about. Senior Sister Yu began to unleash her full strength. Her true energy transformed into countless palms, striking the short man's body repeatedly, directly causing him to cough up blood and be flung backward. But at that very moment, the short man set his sights on the junior sister, gathering malicious energy. It morphed into a pair of large hands reaching out to grab the junior sister. She screamed in terror, completely panicked. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the senior sister promptly unfolded the grand Yin-Yang Qi array. She isolated the malevolent energy outside of its boundary. Realizing they couldn't defeat the short man in battle, she called out to the taller man to leave quickly. If we stay, today will be the end for us. Right here and now. Hearing this, the tall man immediately swung his sword, forcing Wang Sheng to retreat. He then leaped into the air with great agility. Before leaving, he didn't forget to hurl a sharp remark. Xiao Bei, your swordsmanship is quite impressive. Another day, I'll take you on for another 300 rounds. The senior sister couldn't hold back after hearing that. She rushed forward, ready to give them 2 more slaps. But Wang Sheng stopped her in time. Senior sister, our priority is to protect the junior sister. Muyu had already received the intelligence. What comes next would be their mission. But just as Wang Sheng turned his head, he saw the senior sister's eyes brimming with tears. It was as though she was saying it was her fault for being useless. They could have easily been kept behind. The master is definitely going to scold me. Wang Sheng gently patted his senior sister's head and comforted her. Not only did you defeat the enemy, you also managed to protect your junior sister. You were truly incredible. After consoling his senior sister, Wang Sheng glanced at the branch in his hand. He thought to himself, hopefully after this fierce battle, his junior sister would come to understand something. Later, due to the ghostly incidents at the Li family estate, the special investigation team began taking actions against the Yin-Yang sect. However, even with their efforts, they still failed to capture those 2 malevolent cultivators, managing only to eliminate one of them. The female cultivator captured alive by Wang was named Yuchi Yu. She was originally an outer disciple of the Divine Valley sect. 6 months ago, she was bribed by the Yin-Yang sect to steal secret techniques from within the sect. After her betrayal was exposed, she was hunted down and silenced. Just as the capture was imminent, Yu Qiyu was rescued by the Sacred Flame and took the opportunity to join the senior club. This is how the feud between the two sides began. Last night's scene unfolded as a result of this. But for Wang Shang and his group, the real trouble is only just beginning now. After learning the full story, the master's wife slapped the junior apprentice sister without hesitation, and, with bitter disappointment, said, "How did I end up giving birth to someone as foolish as you? Are you genuinely clueless? Or are you just pretending to act this way for my benefit? Have all these years of studying been a complete waste? If it weren't for those two being here, you would already be dead by now. Do you even realize that?" As she spoke, tears began to well up at the corners of her eyes. She raised her hand again, ready to strike once more. But this time, Wang Sheng stepped in to stop her. "Madam, please try to calm down." Junior sister was also misled by someone. Madam clenched her teeth. She let go of Wang Sheng's hand, then turned around to leave, and instructed the team members guarding the door to deliver the interrogation results of junior sister to her within 2 hours. Wang Sheng could only let out a helpless sigh at this. As the saying goes, failing to teach is the father's fault. It is the responsibility of the father. The master and mistress are not entirely blameless in this matter. He then crouched in front of the junior sister with a smile. He comforted her, saying, "Junior sister, once you explain everything clearly, come back to the mountain with us. Experience what true cultivation feels like, and take the chance to meet your biological father." Hearing this, the junior sister stopped crying. Perhaps the mistress also wanted the junior sister to stay away from the turmoil, so she readily agreed to Wang Sheng's suggestion. The spiritual aura of Wudong Mountain is pure and clear, coupled with the warm hospitality of the fellow disciples. The junior sister's mood gradually brightened. But when evening arrived, he couldn't help but ask senior brother Wang Sheng, "When will my father return?" Wang Sheng thought for a moment and said, "This is hard to predict. The master's breakthrough to the golden core stage aligns with the heavenly path. The great chasm is not something easily crossed." "What's wrong? If there's anything, just tell me or senior sister." The junior sister lowered her head. She whispered that she was now redeeming herself through good deeds. She didn't want to make things too difficult for her mother, nor did she want to interfere with his work. If possible, she wanted to quickly learn some skills and join that special investigation team. When Wang Sheng heard that the junior sister had this determination, their efforts to protect her on this journey no longer felt in vain. He immediately stated, "Practicing the path starts with cultivating virtue before honing the mind. Cultivating the path lies in understanding the essence of the Tao. Your father once taught me, the pursuit of the Tao is about seeking its profound state. It is not about mastering powerful techniques. Your own understanding of the Tao is what truly matters. Do not confuse priorities and lose sight of what is fundamental. Avoid misleading yourself by focusing on the wrong aspects." After saying this, Wang Sheng turned around, holding the dishes, and prepared to leave. At the same time, he pondered in his mind. Even though he had already distanced himself from the whirlpool, but the junior sister still has unresolved concerns weighing on her mind. Hopefully, the master will return as soon as possible. Use a steady and gentle kindness to bring warmth to the junior sister. No one knows how the progress over at the special investigation team is going. Meanwhile, in a dormitory at a certain university, a young man wearing glasses was browsing the internet, looking for entertaining games. He suddenly came across a game called The Flamebringer, prompting him to click and check it out. The primordial energy of heaven and earth has been restored. The cultivation civilization is rising once again. Mount Longhu astonishingly plans to announce nationwide through the internet. They intend to publicly auction off the talisman of the celestial master. Matters with the outside world have temporarily come to an end. Wang Sheng no longer has many lingering concerns. The next day, he resumed cultivation to strive forward. The embryonic realm and the spirit-gathering realm begin with spiritual awareness comprehending the essence of heaven and earth. This allows oneself to initially harmonize with the natural world. The embryonic realm. It is the ability to independently control the connection with heaven and earth, to draw spiritual energy from the world around. When the inner cycle aligns with the outer cycle, the fetal stage can be fully achieved. How to complete a flawless and seamless inner cycle is the goal Wang Sheng is currently striving toward. But right at that moment, he suddenly heard Senior Brother Zhou's voice. When he opened the door to take a look, there it was, Senior Brother Zhou indeed. Accompanying them was Taoist Master Gao Shishing. Wang Sheng quickly bowed respectfully to Uncle Master Gao. This time, Uncle Master Gao's visit was also because he heard that Wang Sheng was primarily focused on cultivating the Tao, and intended to provide him with some guidance. This made Wang Sheng couldn't help but sigh. Back then, his original intention of going up the mountain was to apprentice under Uncle Master Gao. But unexpectedly, by a twist of fate, he ended up meeting his master and senior sister instead. Perhaps this is just how life works. In gains and losses, it is more than just a touch of brilliance. After watching the demonstration of the 7 stars sword formation by Wang Sheng, Elder Gao stepped forward and began to give his critique. Your mastery of swordsmanship is profound, but it takes a different path from mine. I am not in a position to offer advice. However, since Wudong's founding, a set of 7 stars sword technique has been passed down, which has many differences from your 7 stars sword formation. Pay close attention. With that said, Senior Master Gao began demonstrating the 7 star sword technique. After watching, Wang Sheng was completely astonished. This sword technique shares similarities with the 7 star sword formation. However, it is not the exact same technique. The Star Chief firmly guarded the central position. The Star Spoon sweeps across all directions. Senior Master Gao, truly worthy of being a master who has immersed himself in the way of the sword for 2 to 3 decades. Compared to him, my understanding is far too superficial. The master's knowledge is far too broad and varied. He has not focused on a single path. The martial uncle specializes in the pure path of sword cultivation. With his guidance, I am certain I can make even greater progress. So after Martial Uncle Gao finished his demonstration, Wang Sheng immediately stepped forward to seek advice, hoping that Martial Uncle could guide him in his cultivation. However, Martial Uncle Gao humbly suggested that they exchange pointers instead. At this moment, you see someone whose cultivation level might not be below mine. Why not exchange a few moves and give it a try? Upon witnessing this scene, the young junior sister in the room widened her eyes with excitement. She asked her senior brother in disbelief, "Is he really that powerful?" The senior sister smiled and nodded her head. And from that day onward, Senior Uncle Gao would come here every few days to spar with Wang Sheng. They met each other, completing one another. Over the past few days, Wang Sheng has gained a great deal of insight as well. Until this very day, in the middle of their sparring session, a hearty laugh suddenly echoed from the doorway. "It's fine for you two to spar, but don't let this kind of contest end up hurting anyone." Wang Sheng and Senior Uncle Gao simultaneously turned their heads to look. Uncle Gao exclaimed in surprise, "Master, why have you, Elder, come here?" Then they heard the visitor stroking his beard and saying, "Your uncle, your senior brother all mentioned Kinjianzi. That guy got lucky and stumbled upon an extraordinary sword. As someone who has practiced swordsmanship my entire life, of course, I had to come and take a good look and evaluate its craftsmanship." Wang Sheng hurriedly bowed and greeted the master. But deep down, he was a bundle of nerves. The master of the senior uncle. Isn't that the highest-ranking elder in the mountain? The former sect leader. The Grandmaster gave a faint smile and told Wang Sheng not to stand on ceremony, then sat down on a stone chair nearby and began offering guidance to Wang Sheng and the other person. "You two are far too fixated on the sword. Do not overlook the essence of the path. Sparring is fine, but keep it within limits. Make sure not to hurt each other. Being overly rigid often leads to breaking. A single careless move could harm the other's cultivation foundation. Alright, let's begin." With that, Wang Sheng and Senior Uncle Gao resumed their sparring. At the same time, they were also reflecting in their minds. In a past life, a legendary ranking list was said to encompass all the experts of the cultivation world. Yet, senior figures like the master rarely made public appearances. And naturally, they were not included on the list. Being able to receive his guidance is truly a stroke of fortune for someone like me, a junior. At this moment, the master began to offer guidance to Wang Sheng. "The heavens and earth originally existed without me, but I have found a small place to stand and settle myself. The heavens and earth ought to include me, allowing space for the mind, soul, and spirit of this life." Receiving the master's enlightenment. At this moment, Wang Sheng seemed to have realized something profound. In an instant, the surrounding energy began to converge toward him. He simply took a deep breath. Vital energy flowed through his 7 orifices and entered his body. Eventually, it reached its peak. Wang Sheng shouted loudly and broke through to the embryo formation realm. After achieving a minor breakthrough, Wang Sheng could feel the spiritual sense in his body was steadily increasing, and his true essence became even more refined. This must be what the embryo formation realm is like. But the most pressing matter right now. It is still necessary to immediately stabilize the current cultivation level. Preparations must be made to break through to the golden core stage. At this moment, the master looked at Wang Sheng, who was sitting cross-legged to stabilize his cultivation level. A surge of true essence gathered in his hand, and it was directly pressed down onto the top of Wang Sheng's head. Upon seeing this, Uncle Gao immediately understood. The master intended to leave some guidance and advice, so he took the initiative to excuse himself and leave. Then the master spoke again and retracted his spiritual consciousness. Calm your mind. Focus on comprehending the Tao deeply. I have wielded the sword for many years. Today, I shall pass this understanding on to you. I hope you grasp it well. The first 3 realms of the sword Tao are sword form, sword intent, and sword momentum. They serve as the foundation of the sword Tao. Any accomplished sword cultivator typically first comprehends these 3 stages within their respective realms. The 4th realm is sword mastery. One must choose a single sword to nurture. Day and night, nourish it with one's own spiritual intent. Master the art of sword cultivation. The 5th realm, the mind sword. Abandon the sword for the sake of the sword. Transform the tangible into the intangible. The sword can become endless and continuous. It can also be incomparably sharp. As for the 6th realm, forging the sword. It is to use the mind sword as the sword's soul, using the body of the Tao as the foundation of the sword. Once unsheathed, it dominates the world with unrivaled power. Before long, Wang Sheng opened his eyes again. He was reflecting on the 6 realms of swordsmanship that the master had just explained. Perhaps it was not the ultimate end of the sword's path, but it had already pointed him in the right direction, for a journey that would stretch far into the future. From now on, he would take his time to comprehend it. At that moment, the master's voice echoed in his mind once more. Allow me to offer you a piece of advice. Take your time to truly understand it. This turns out to be the legacy of the grand scholar's Tao realm. Wang Sheng could hardly contain his excitement. His eyes widened in disbelief. And then he fainted. Fortunately, the senior sister appeared just in time. She caught him in her arms. Then the senior sister gestured for the junior sister to advance. Carrying Wang Sheng, she headed straight into the house. Meanwhile, the junior sister gradually spoke in a softer tone. Zihua excitedly picked up the phone. Captured the precious moment of the senior sister, carrying the second senior brother in a princess carry. Later, Wang Sheng stepped into the realm of forming the core, assimilating his insights. He slept for an entire day before finally waking up. But what he didn't expect was the casual suggestion given by the Grandmaster. Turned out to be a suggestion worth 200 million. The balance between yin and yang shifts with the changing seasons. It can all be referred to as the dual principles of yin and yang. The advisor only offered suggestions. This was naturally because Wang Sheng had already stepped into the realm of a swordsman. He effortlessly gained the profoundly intricate dual principles sword technique. And he also understood the path he needed to take in the future for mastering the way of the sword. In just a brief span of 20 days after returning to the mountain, Wang Sheng had already made significant progress in his journey of swordsmanship. He had advanced another substantial step forward. From now on, the sword would be his ultimate tool of practice. At the same time, it also served as his way of safeguarding the path of cultivation. It was furthermore his reliance to stand firm between heaven and earth, and it became his source of support in the vast world. However, these tranquil days had barely begun when Mao Yu called again. Taoist Wang, something terrible has happened. Just a few hours ago, the Sacred Fire Group announced nationwide through a deeply encrypted network that they are going to auction off the Heavenly Master's secret records from Dragon Tiger Mountain, the first and second volumes of the scroll. Wang Sheng's eyes widened in shock upon hearing this. He instinctively asked where the talisman of the Celestial Master was. How much does it cost? Are there only the first and second volumes? But as soon as the words left his mouth, he realized he had lost his composure. This is no longer the impoverished life of his past existence. What use is the talisman of the Celestial Master now? He quickly cleared his throat twice to ease the awkwardness, then asked what the response was from Mount Longhu. You all have already made contact, right? Muyu searched through the materials, while replying, yes. And we have also confirmed the identity of the Sacred Flame member. It is someone from Longhu Mountain. Attempting to hack. Qian Xing was able to study under Master Tianzheng of Longhu Mountain. 1 year ago, he was caught trying to steal the lower volume of the Celestial Master Talisman Scroll. After injuring a junior fellow disciple, he fled the scene. Now, Taoist Master Tianzheng has already arrived with a group. However, it's likely that other sects will also send people here. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng instinctively thought of the other person's Taoist title, Qianqing. And he was also a disciple of Taoist Master Tianzheng. Could it be that he is senior brother to Shi Qianzheng? As for people from other sects being sent over, that wouldn't be surprising either. After all, the Tianshi secret record is the foundation of Mount Longhu. It's certain that many sects covet it in secret. And this is precisely what Mou and the others are worried about. Once this matter gets out of control, it's likely to cause trouble for the entire cultivation world. To prepare for any potential issues, they had no choice but to seek Wang Sheng's help in stabilizing the situation. However, this matter is of such great importance. Wang Sheng could only say that he would try to figure something out. If the time comes when all the sect leaders intervene, he and his senior sister wouldn't have much say in the matter either. Given the circumstances, in that case, we can only ask the master to step in. Not long after, Wang Sheng made his way to Zhongnan Mountain. Unexpectedly, just as he reached the foot of the mountain, he ran into an old Taoist priest who immediately asked if he was a disciple of Qing Lianzi. Wang Sheng respectfully replied that he indeed was. May I ask, senior, if you have seen my master Qing Lianzi? Hearing this, the old Taoist took out his phone and tapped a few times. Then, he sent a voice message in a chat group. Fellow Taoists, has anyone seen Taoist Qing Lianzi? His apprentice Wang Feiyu has come looking for him. Before long, someone in the group responded. The Taoist friend Qing Lianzi seems to be with Taoist Master Jingyun. And Taoist Master Jingyun quickly provided a reply. He is with me. Why, where is Feiyu now? Upon hearing it was a woman, he immediately realized that this Taoist Master Jingyun was a female cultivator. What is referred to as a female cultivator is actually a respectful term for women practitioners of Taoism. Thinking of this, a scene like this naturally unfolded in his mind. It always felt like the master's wife carried a hint of the prairie air. The young man had originally come to Zhongnan Mountain to seek a master for secluded training in breakthrough. Unexpectedly, he discovered the master's wife had a rival in love, and the two even ended up living together. At this moment, Wang Sheng was already being led by the old Taoist to the residence of Taoist Jingyun. But what puzzled him was, it was said that Taoist Jingyun possessed extraordinary cultivation and talent. Why was this individual absent from the heavenly rankings in my previous life? But since the master chose this place, then Taoist Jingyun must be a trusted companion of theirs. At this moment, a voice suddenly echoed from the courtyard. Is it Feiyu who has arrived? Follow the path along the western side of the courtyard, and you will find your way to me. Wang Sheng followed the directions given by the voice, and arrived at the western side of the courtyard. It seems this must be the place where Master Jingyun practices cultivation. Suddenly, he noticed that there was actually a trace of his master's presence inside a cave. It appears that the master is meditating in seclusion inside. Wang Sheng immediately prepared to go in and take a look. At that moment, a voice came from behind saying, condensing the golden core through feather flight. It is quite perilous. You absolutely must not disturb senior brother Qing Lianzi right now. Did you come to see him for something this time? Is there a specific reason for your visit? It turned out that Taoist Jingyun had stepped out from the courtyard, and surprisingly, his strength had reached the void core stage. Wang Sheng explained the situation in full detail to Taoist Jingyun. After learning the whole story, Taoist Jingyun also seemed a bit troubled. Under such circumstances, you two juniors, it is indeed a challenge to appease the elders of those sects. However, back then, sister-in-law Lin left without hesitation. The young senior brother became despondent for her and the child she was carrying, and now she expects the senior brother to put in effort for her once again. What kind of reasoning is this? When Wang Sheng heard this, he was completely stunned. Judging by Uncle Jingyun's demeanor, could it be that she also has feelings for the master? At that moment, a sudden rumble echoed from the front, above the place where Qing Lianzi was in seclusion. A massive formation of thunderclouds gathered. Wang Shang was overwhelmed with excitement. This is the heavenly tribulation, the master has advanced to the golden core stage. Uncle Jingyun placed a hand on his shoulder. Assure him there's no need to panic. Senior brother has successfully formed his golden core. The next step is to reflect on the breakthrough. He must not be disturbed during this process. For now, I am the only one who can take him on this journey. It's also a good opportunity to meet Sister Ling, Xi's wife. Ask him what gave him the right to walk away so easily back then, causing senior brother Qin Yan to be separated from his daughter for 20 years. Hearing this, Wang Shang couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. It seems this trip is unlikely to be a peaceful one. Afterward, Wang Shang set off with Uncle Jingyun. In the car, Wang Shang asked Mao Yu to explain the details of the situation. Mao Yu stated, "The last few core members of the Overreach Club still remain untraceable. However, according to the records, there is evidence of an evil cult operating secretly behind the flame bearers, such as the Celestial Fire Sect and the Martial Deity Sect." Wang Shang gave it some thought. Among these groups, only the Martial Deity Sect seems to have any real scale. In his past life, the Martial Deity Sect was practically the epitome of a heretical and unorthodox group. He hadn't expected to encounter them this time. But what he cared about more was information on the Yin Yang Sect. Yet Mu Yu stated, the Yin Yang Sect has not shown any signs of activity yet. Instead, the Martial God Sect has sent a large number of skilled experts infiltrating inside. They have even boldly declared their determination to obtain the Heavenly Master Talisman. Upon hearing this, Wang Shang couldn't help but silently mock in his heart. The Martial God Sect is actually helping the Yin Yang Sect divert attention. Should I commend them for their selflessness? Meanwhile, Uncle Master Jingyun was gazing out of the window and spoke with righteous indignation, saying that although they lack a large presence, they are ultimately still evil cultivators like Feiyu. Later, we should take a stroll through the streets. If we come across any evil cultivators causing harm, we ought to intervene as well. This left Wang Shang feeling a bit helpless. He hadn't expected his martial uncle to have a personality that was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, possessing a heart full of chivalry. So he could only give an awkward smile and say, "I have a friend who has also been keeping an eye on the surroundings lately. Let's go find him first." And the friend Wang Shang mentioned, nature itself is Senior Shen. The three of them met at a restaurant. They chatted while eating. Wang Shang asked the senior sister, "Is there anything unusual happening at school lately?" The senior sister hesitated a bit before pulling out her phone. She said she wasn't sure if this counted as something unusual. "Take a look for yourself." Wang Shang took the phone and glanced at it. He saw several comments on the campus forum. Why should only cultivators have the right to practice cultivation? Are we destined to remain ordinary people forever? This is clearly a conspiracy by the righteous sects of the famed mountains. Even without natural talent, is living a long, healthy, and pain-free life too much to ask for? Everyone deserves the right to cultivate. Why must techniques and resources be monopolized by cultivators? Wang Shang looked at the comments and replies. He realized that someone was clearly stirring up trouble, and it was highly likely to be the overaged Society of the Sacred Flame, auctioning cultivation techniques, now inciting ordinary people. What exactly are they trying to do? But just as Wang Shang was pondering, meanwhile, Uncle Jingyun did notice something unusual. Wang Shang and Mao Yu turned their heads to look. They saw a demonic cultivator place his hand on the girl's shoulder and started walking out with her. He then led the girl to a hotel and handed her over to a sleazy old man. It turned out they intended to drain the girl's energy. At this moment, Wang Shang and Uncle Jingyun, who were hiding outside the door, decisively chose to break through the door and enter. Uncle Jingyun swiftly moved behind the old man in an instant. His hands channeled true energy to launch an attack, and he reminded Wang Shang not to let anyone escape. Wang Shang immediately followed behind him, swinging several waves of sword energy, which directly obliterated the evil cultivator. After finishing up on this side, Wang Shang was preparing to assist his senior uncle in dealing with the sly old man. Although his senior uncle was currently overwhelming the old man in the fight, Wang Shang understood that his senior uncle usually only practiced within the mountains and lacked extensive experience in actual combat. At the moment, he was merely suppressing the opponent through his cultivation level. But over time, it might lead to trouble. So Wang Shang immediately reminded his senior uncle to overpower the enemy with strength and not hold back. His senior uncle listened, decisively concentrated true essence, delivered a strike to the old man's chest, blasted the old man into the air, shattered the glass of the room. But, unexpectedly, the old man suddenly launched a spiritual attack, shouted loudly, ruining my plans. I will eradicate your entire family, destroy your whole household, and torment every woman related to you to death. The moment these words were spoken, they instantly struck a nerve in Wang Shang. Without hesitation, he grabbed his sword and leapt from the 100-meter-high building. He practiced the way of the sword to protect his family. If even this couldn't be accomplished, then despite having been reborn, what meaning would there be in living through it all again? Seeing Wang Shang recklessly thrusting his sword toward him, the old man became a bit flustered. He truly hadn't expected this to happen. At a very young age, Wang Shang had just stepped into the core formation realm. Yet he could withstand the assault of his own spiritual thoughts without fear. He turned out to be even trickier to deal with than that false core. Immediately, he gathered all his murderous aura, transforming it into countless ghostly hands reaching out to grab Wang Shang. Without hesitation, Wang Shang unleashed his most powerful attack, shattering the numerous ghostly hands in his path, and piercing straight through the old man with a single blow, followed by a loud explosion echoing in the air. The two landed on the ground together. Instantly, debris scattered everywhere. Dust quickly covered the entire area. Once the smoke cleared, the old man was completely lifeless. Meanwhile, Wang Shang lay face down on the ground. He looked at the broken sword in his hand and said. A soft apology escaped his lips. And then his vision went dark. He fainted on the spot. A dragon has a reverse scale. Touch it, and death is inevitable. Even if it meant leaping from the 18th floor. Wang Shang would stop at nothing to eliminate the evil cultivator threatening his family. At that moment in the hospital, Muyu was reporting the identity of the evil cultivator to her team leader. It turned out that evil cultivator had once been a notorious fugitive responsible for countless crimes, carrying the weight of over a dozen murder cases. After the revival of heaven and earth's spiritual energy, relied on the sinister method of absorbing yin energy to enhance yang energy and became a master. Recently became an elder of the martial god sect. Goes by the title of the Woodin Divine Thousand Blossom Taoist. Upon hearing this, the master's wife let out a deep sigh of relief, turned her head to look at Wang Shang, said that since the traces of that evil cultivator have been discovered, there are hundreds of ways to deal with him. You really have a strong sense of social responsibility. Leapt directly from the 18th floor, struck that person with a sword. Wang Shang scratched his head awkwardly. At the time, I didn't give it much thought. Just then, Master Dingyun walked over. With a cold snort, she remarked that Fei Yu wouldn't have gotten injured if not for coming down the mountain to help you. How else would he have been hurt? Seeing the tense standoff between the master and mistress, poised as if they were about to fight, Wang Shang hurriedly stepped in to mediate. Only then did the two snort at each other and turn away and leave. Seeing this, Wang Shang finally breathed a sigh of relief. Good thing there wasn't a fight. But the senior student nearby reminded Wang Shang, you don't need to worry about others. A bone injury takes 100 days to heal. Focus on resting well for now. I need to head back to school. Tomorrow, I'll bring you a pot of bone broth. Wang Shang nodded his head. He expressed his gratitude to the senior student. After that, the senior student walked out of the hospital, stepping onto the highway. A car had already been waiting for quite some time. 2 bodyguards were stationed in front of the car. At that moment, as the car window slowly rolled down, a frail, elderly voice came from inside the car. We've had such a hard time trying to find you. Young master, I am not in the condition to move easily. Please forgive me for not stepping out to greet you properly. I humbly ask for your understanding. Looking at the elderly lady inside the car, the senior sister was also somewhat surprised by the presence of the third grandmother. Why are you here? But the third grandmother explained that they couldn't stop worrying about us, so she came over to ensure your safety, to protect the young sect master. Tonight might not be a peaceful one. Meanwhile, in front of the hospital, all members of the Special Investigation Unit were already fully prepared. Based on the information gathered from the investigation, the auction is scheduled to take place at midnight tonight. Cash transactions are acceptable. Alternatively, exchanging cultivation techniques is also an option. The talisman of the Celestial Master is considered a top-tier cultivation technique in the art of talismans. Naturally, it has attracted a significant number of cultivators. and in their quest to obtain the technique, some may go as far as resorting to murder and robbery, endangering countless innocent people in the process. Wang Shang, due to his injuries, was unable to join. Fortunately, Uncle Master Gingyun stepped in to assist the mistress in stabilizing the situation. With him present, the collaboration between the Special Investigation Team and the Dragon Tiger Mountain Group can proceed smoothly. Now they have set up an inescapable net, just waiting for the sacred firekeeper to appear so they can capture them in one move. But at this moment, Wang Sheng in the hospital ward suddenly asked Mu Yu, "What's the date today?" Mu Yu instinctively responded, "October 18th. What's wrong?" Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng couldn't help but fall into deep thought, reflecting on moments from the previous life, thinking about what I was doing at this exact point in time. It always feels like this event has some kind of connection to my past life. Suddenly, Wang Sheng vividly recalled the Holy Flame Bearer. Could the Holy Flame possibly be? At that moment, the hospital room door swung open with a bang, abruptly interrupting Wang Sheng's train of thought. Immediately, he saw Zhang rush over and cling to his leg, bursting into tears. "Brother Shang, I've missed you so much. Brother Shang." Wang Shang looked at the suddenly appearing Shi Qianzhang with a bit of surprise, but he still gestured for Mao Yu to step out first. Once Mao Yu closed the door and left, Wang Shang turned around and told Shi Qianzhang to speak his mind. "What's all this about life and death? You're a disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain. Don't let people laugh at you." Shi Qianzhang replied while wiping away his tears. "Brother Shang, please don't lecture me anymore." But in the next moment, Wang Sheng directly asked, "You're here for Guo Qianqing, the sacred flame wielder, aren't you?" It turned out Wang Sheng had already figured out their connection. He just hadn't expected that the Heavenly Master's talisman was actually passed on to him by Shi Qianzhang. Meanwhile, Shi Qianzhang lowered his head, clenched his fists tightly, and gritted his teeth, saying he wanted to accomplish something big. "He told me not to step in and track his whereabouts, but I truly didn't expect him to escalate things this much, and I have no idea how many lives will be lost tonight. I do have a way to find him. I'm scared because he's my closest brother. Brother Shang, tell me, what should I do? There's a heavy weight in my chest." To this, Wang Sheng expressed determination. "Your protection is the key. Success stems from personal methods. You need to save your senior brother. Stop him from making a mistake. The auction is about to begin. If you keep hesitating, it might be too late to fix anything." So after a period of internal struggle, Shi Qianzhang finally made up his mind to go find Guo Qianqing and stop him before he escalates the situation. Wang Sheng showed a satisfied smile, but at that moment, an attack suddenly came out of nowhere. Fortunately, Wang Sheng quickly pulled Shi Qianzhang away. Only then did they barely manage to dodge it. Soon after, 3 people walked in from outside the door. One of them was the tall man from earlier. Then the young man leading the group smiled and said, "Taoist Master Shi, where are you planning to go?" "Taoist Master Qianqing, a significant event is about to unfold. You all should probably refrain from disturbing him." Shi Qianzhang positioned himself in front of Wang Sheng to shield him. He questioned the others, demanding to know who they were. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng glanced at them, feeling a growing sense of unease. The young man's level of cultivation remained unclear, yet both of his attendants turned out to be in the embryo formation stage. "It seems we've found ourselves in a troublesome situation." At this moment, the young man once again grinned and said, "Taoist Wang, since you've already gotten out of this mess, you should stay away from this trouble now. We simply want to have a word with Master Shi." But just as the words left my mouth, the nurse behind me reminded the young master, "The Special Investigation Unit has already sent someone over." Hearing this, the young man's eyes instantly sharpened. "If that's the case, then we have no choice but to let Master Shi make the first move." At the young man's command, the two of them rushed together toward Shi Qianzhang. Both aimed directly at Shi Qianzhang as they charged forward. The nurse gripped 2 daggers in her hands. In an instant, she held the blades against Shi Qianzhang's neck. Fortunately, Shi Qianzhang quickly activated his indestructible body technique. The weapons couldn't pierce him. But in the end, it's hard for one to fight off many. To avoid dragging Wang Sheng into the trouble, Shi Qianzhang decisively jumped out of the window to escape. The 3 of them immediately followed after him. Right after that, Wang Sheng noticed 2 individuals holding amnioscopes. They were circling Shi Qianzhang downstairs. He understood that these people were targeting Shi Qianzhang alone. As long as he didn't intervene, the chances of Shi Qianzhang getting through this crisis were quite high. But could he really stand by and do nothing while someone was in danger? At that moment, as Shi Qianzhang was grappling with the tall man, a pair of high heels suddenly landed on his shoulder. In the next instant, a nurse appeared above him. Holding 2 daggers, she was ready to take his life. At the critical moment, Wang Sheng acted swiftly. He hurled the wheelchair, knocking the nurse away, then followed up with a sword strike to force the tall man back. Afterwards, he slowly settled himself back onto the wheelchair. Resolutely holding his sword, he faced the 3 individuals head-on. Although I am not very familiar with Taoist Qianzhang, I can't simply let him die here, can I? Seeing Wang Sheng intent on intervening in this matter, the young man gave a faint smile. Have the tall man take on Wang Sheng. The tall man leaped effortlessly into the air and came slashing straight down toward Wang Sheng. Kid, last time we didn't settle the score. Let's continue today. But Wang Sheng remained completely unflustered. Even though his injured legs made him unable to use the 7-star sword formation, he now had other techniques at his disposal, not limited to just the 7-star sword formation, and his strength had already advanced to the core formation realm. Things have long since changed dramatically from what they were before. Facing a sword strike from the tall man, he directly unleashed the intent of the 2E sword. Using the principle of leveraging strength with minimal effort, he skillfully redirected and flung the opponent away. Then he followed up with the 2E4 symbols technique, creating a protective barrier based on the 8 trigrams. But at this moment, Shi Qianzhang was clearly struggling. It seemed as though he was about to be slain by the nurse. Wang Sheng suddenly shouted, "Master Dingyun," using swordsmanship directly to kill. The nurse quickly stepped aside to dodge upon hearing this. Only then did they realize they had been tricked. It was just sword energy earlier. It wasn't actual swordsmanship at all. Meanwhile, Shi Qianzhang took advantage of the opening and unleashed the Vajra body shield once again, preparing to continue battling the opponent for 300 rounds. But before finishing his words, his chest was suddenly pierced through with a single blow. The one who made the move was none other than that young man. Wang Sheng quickly pushed the wheelchair forward to check the situation. Fortunately, Qianzhang was not injured in any critical areas. For now, his life is not in danger. At this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly echoed from not far away. The special investigation team had finally arrived. The nurse and the young man, seeing this, immediately prepared to retreat. But the tall man who had just been sent flying by Wang Sheng, it was clear that reason had already been lost. Without the slightest concern for the injuries on his body, he moved toward Wang Sheng. Judging by his demeanor, he seemed intent on continuing. The young man decisively turned away, choosing to stay uninvolved. Their goal had already been accomplished. It was time for them to leave. Shortly after, the tall man drenched in sweat raised his sword. Once more, he prepared to strike at Wang Sheng. The special investigation team, seeing this, immediately took out chains, bound his limbs with incredible speed, subdued him in an instant, and reported the situation here to colleagues in other locations to take control of an evil cultivator. While 2 other cultivators ran into the hospital building, one team blocked the entrance, while another team proceeded to search inside. Resistance was met with permission for immediate elimination. Wang Sheng watched these individuals, recalling what was heard in the previous life. The Special Investigation Unit had once assembled a team of elite officers. It seems they are the ones. At this moment, someone nearby suddenly asked Wang Sheng if he needed their help with treatment. Wang Sheng patted Shi Qianzhang, who was standing beside him, introducing him as Taoist Master Shi Qianzhang from Mount Longhu, who had a way to locate the sacred fire bearer. He told them to prioritize treating him first. And even up to this moment, Wang Sheng finally came to understand why he had never heard of Shi Qianzhang's name in his previous life. Because without his intervention this time, Shi Qianzhang might have truly met an untimely end, which is why in his past life he had never heard any mention of Shi Qianzhang. Not long after, Shi Qianzhang's wounds were dressed, and his condition finally stabilized. He immediately took out a green talisman, and in the next instant, the talisman spontaneously ignited. Shi Qianzhang clenched his teeth and spoke with determination. "I have wronged you, Qianxing. In the next life, I'll repay you by working tirelessly for you." After saying this, he tossed the talisman in his hand. It transformed into a fortune bird. The bird took flight and soared away. The Special Investigation Unit, noticing this, acted immediately. They promptly informed headquarters. Every available method was deployed to track that fortune bird. Meanwhile, Shi Qianzhang lay motionless on the ground, covered their face and broke into tears. After the tears subsided, was waiting alongside Wang Sheng for the outcome. The energy of heaven and earth began to revive. Mount Longhu attempted to transform into the holy flame. Publicly auctioned the Tianzhi blessings online, all in hopes of enabling everyone on earth to cultivate. At 2 a.m., the holy flame bearer Guoqianqing was finally captured. Wang Sheng also arrived at the interrogation room. At this moment, Guoqianqing coughed twice. He told Wang Sheng and the others to ask whatever they wanted. After all, he was already gravely ill. His time was running out. There was no need to trouble him any further. Upon hearing this, the mistress asked him to explain the procedures of the Heavenly Master's blessing auction. He unexpectedly revealed. Guoqianqing claimed there was no auction at all, even though he was a former disciple abandoned by Mount Longhu. However, it's absolutely impossible to hand over the talisman of the Celestial Master to the Dark Cultivators. As for the cultivation techniques they plan to use in exchange, he has already entrusted them to someone he can completely rely on. Next, they will distribute these techniques through online platforms. These cultivation methods will be spread across the internet. Upon hearing this, the master's wife immediately issued a command. She instructed them to contact the online department right away and monitor the entire network. But at this moment, Guoqianqing suddenly asked about the return of spiritual energy. Why can't everyone on earth follow the path of cultivation? I am merely a trailblazer. Surely others will come after me. But before he could finish speaking, the master's wife sharply interrupted with a stern scolding, cutting him off, saying that's enough. She ordered him to be restrained and to be kept under strict watch. Yet at that moment, Guoqianqing smiled and said there's no need for such trouble. My time has come. After he finished speaking, his hand slowly fell. It gradually dropped lower and lower, along with the cigarette falling to the ground. The sacred flame bearer, Guoqianqing, completely departed from this world. Seeing this, the mistress slammed the wall with great force. She immediately gave the order to spread the news of the sacred flame bearer's death, to restore order as quickly as possible. Those cultivators still gathering and causing trouble outside. Detain those who need to be detained. Confine those who need to be confined. As Wang Sheng gazed at Guoqianqing, who had already passed away, he couldn't help but feel a bit melancholic, thinking that the cultivation method I practiced in my previous life was indeed passed down by the hands of those associated with the sacred flame. Stealing the sacred flame, a gift to all living beings. Guoqianqing, in a certain sense, truly lives up to the name of the flamebearer. However, although the flamebearer has passed away, the turmoil he and the auction caused. However, the situation did not completely settle down. Fortunately, with the collective efforts to suppress it, those cultivators who caused trouble under false pretenses did not manage to stir up too much of a commotion. After this battle was over, Uncle Jingyun claimed to be unfit for the impurity of the mortal world, and returned to the mountain to await the master's emergence from seclusion. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng stayed in the city to recover from his injuries, hoping to use the opportunity to reshape his bones and temper his physical body. However, it seemed that the master's wife had other plans for him. That day, Wang Sheng was sitting in a wheelchair, touring the Daochang Research Institute, when he suddenly received a message from his senior sister, asking Wang Sheng to wait there, saying he would come over right away. Seeing a string of angry emojis sent by his senior sister, Wang Sheng instantly felt that something was seriously wrong. Previously, the senior and junior sisters had taken over the role of protecting their master on behalf of the uncle master who had gone down the mountain. It must be that the martial uncle has returned to Zhongnan Mountain and mentioned something about me to him. Could this be the end of it? However, just as Wang Sheng was pondering, a voice suddenly came from behind him. When he turned around, it turned out to be the master of the Falusin sect. Wang Sheng quickly bowed respectfully to the three of them. At that moment, a professor stepped forward. Since little Taoist Wang has also arrived, let's begin the seminar right away. Today's topic is the mystery behind the revival of cosmic energy. Wang Sheng was beaming with excitement. Has he finally uncovered this secret at last? The seminar then officially commenced. The professor stood on stage to explain to everyone. A year ago, we conducted an exploration on the far side of the moon. This can be considered a remarkable achievement for our country. After carrying out the initial exploration, we stumbled upon an unbelievable discovery. Next, please take a look at this classified video. This footage was recorded on the eve of the Vitality resurgence. That is, on New Year's Eve of that year. And inside the sealed capsule was exactly the object we brought back from the far side of the moon. But what no one could have anticipated was that the object turned out to be a woman. And judging by appearances, the woman seemed to radiate vitality. Even through the screen, his cultivation level can be distinctly felt. It's absolutely terrifying. Moreover, the woman is wearing a celestial-grade immortal garment. Who exactly is he? Faced with everyone's confusion, the professor gave a soft cough, signaling everyone to remain quiet, and then stated, "This celestial maiden was discovered during our exploration of the far side of the moon. At that time, he had remained in a state of unconsciousness. Afterwards, our lunar research was entirely centered around him, until we brought him back to Earth." Once the meeting concluded, Wang Sheng couldn't help but start forming some speculations in his mind. On New Year's Eve, almost every household worshipped heaven and earth, offering tributes to the gods. Could it be that the celestial maiden awakened because of this? And awakened the Earth's vitality? What exactly is hidden on the moon? Why is that fairy capable of summoning vitality? And why do I always feel like that fairy resembles the world? Just as Wang Sheng was deep in thought, Professor Ma suddenly appeared before him and invited him to have a chat in his office. Once they entered the office, Professor Ma began rummaging through the drawers and cabinets. It turns out that his wife and the master's wife have been close friends for decades. Today, to everyone's surprise, Wang Sheng showed up. As an elder, he naturally wanted to prepare something nice for Wang Sheng. It just so happened that he had obtained a sword from one of his classmates. He decided to give the sword to Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng accepted the sword without hesitation. He held the box with a bit of confusion. He couldn't figure out what kind of sword it was. Professor Ma was entering the code on the box. While doing so, he explained that this was one of their research achievements. Unfortunately, the cost is too high. It cannot be widely adopted. It uses relatively advanced composite materials. The manufacturing cost is approximately over 3,000 per gram. Hearing this price, Wang Sheng couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Over 3,000 per gram. Does this count as taking advantage of the country's resources? Then, as the box opened with a snap, Wang Sheng finally saw the full appearance of the sword. Then he picked up the sword and gently ran his fingers over it. He noticed that channeling true energy into it was remarkably smooth. The maker had even taken into account the sword's ability to enhance a cultivator's true energy. But unfortunately, it lacked any semblance of spiritual essence, making it useless for cultivation. It could only be used for combat. So he asked Professor Ma what the sword's name was. Professor Ma smiled and said there wasn't one yet. Why don't you give it a name yourself? Wang Sheng gave it some thought. Since that's the case, then let's call him Wuling. After that, Wang Sheng and Ma Yu went to the airport to pick up their senior sister. But what Wang Sheng didn't expect was, this time, it was actually Uncle Jingyun who arranged the flight for the senior sister. Wang Sheng couldn't understand what Uncle really intended to do. Could it be that he wanted to secure the junior sister first? To strengthen the relationship with the master. This move is both intimidating and deeply unsettling when used skillfully. Shortly after landing, the senior sister walked over wearing sunglasses. She came dragging her suitcase behind her. Wang Sheng saw her and was just about to greet her. But she immediately took off her sunglasses, revealing a fierce expression as she stared at him. Wang Sheng hastily explained, "Senior sister, I'm really fine. Maybe the injury will be healed by tomorrow." At that moment, the senior sister turned her head and expressed her thanks to Mao Yu, who was standing beside her. Wang Sheng took the opportunity to change the subject, saying, "Senior sister, you've started dressing up as well, haven't you?" But deep down, he was thinking about something else. It seemed that the senior sister was still upset. He quickly tried to calm her down. At that moment, a voice suddenly came from not far away, sounding nonsensical and odd. "It really was your founding master. So miraculous, truly incredible. Hurry and return with me now. Saving the mountain is as urgent as saving a life." A middle-aged Taoist, dressed in a traditional robe, came into view. He was rushing toward Wang Sheng and his group with his young disciple in tow. The senior sister immediately stepped in front of Wang Sheng to shield him. This scene brought to mind a familiar childhood game. Wang Sheng couldn't help but think of the game Eagle Catches the Chicks. At the same time, he recognized what the Taoist had just said. It seemed to carry the distinct accent of Sichuan. He wondered if the Taoist might be from the Shu Mountain sect. He immediately inquired about the Taoist master's name. Then, with a smile, the Taoist clasped his hands and said he was overly excited. He mentioned that he had forgotten to introduce himself. I am Fei Lianzi of the Shu Mountain Sword Sect. I came here specifically to find you this time. Wang Sheng quickly returned the gesture with respect. At the same time, he felt a bit puzzled. Why would someone from the Sword Sect seek him out? After that, the group had a brief conversation in the car. Wang Sheng finally came to understand the purpose of Taoist Fei Lianzi's visit this time. It turned out that before the depletion of the world's spiritual energy, the Sword Sect had established a trial known as Sword 72 for the sect. After the world's spiritual energy was restored, the trial resumed once again. According to the ancient texts of the Sword Sect, as long as one can pass the trial, they will be able to master the complete art of swordsmanship. But the issue is, so far, not a single disciple of the Sword Sect has succeeded. No one has been able to pass this trial. Most sect disciples can't even step inside. That's why Fei Lianzi approached Wang Sheng. After learning the full story, Wang Sheng still humbly expressed his thoughts. He said his skills were too limited, and feared he might not be able to complete the trial. But to his surprise, Fei Lianzi had great confidence in him. He believed Wang Sheng could achieve what others could not. You are practically the leader among modern sword cultivators. Just look at this sword's structure. This sword's form is practically reminiscent of a swordsman. As soon as those words were spoken, Wang Sheng's face turned pale with shock. He suspected that the flying chain might have done it on purpose. However, this was, after all, the Sword Sect's sword controlling technique perfected over 1,000 years. It's something countless individuals have sought but could never attain. Wang Sheng certainly didn't want to miss this opportunity. So, he agreed to give it a try. It should take about 2 days. His leg injury will fully heal by then. At that time, he can set out for Jianmen Pass. When Yan Fei immediately responded that it was an easy matter. I happened to bring the sect's sacred medicine for healing, but it was rejected by Wang Sheng. I appreciate the kind offer from the Taoist priest. However, with my current level of cultivation, this minor injury is not difficult to recover from. Even though the injuries on my feet seem severe. However, getting better is actually not that difficult. I just plan to take this opportunity to refine my body and strengthen my bones, so that I can reach an even higher level. When it came to this point, the senior sister suddenly grabbed his ear tightly. Judging from the expression, it was obvious she was saying, "How dare you kick your own feet again?" Wang Sheng was in so much pain from being grabbed that his eyes almost welled up with tears. He hurriedly admitted his mistake to his senior sister. But just at that moment, the car came to an abrupt stop. Muyu turned to ask Wang Sheng if his leg could recover now. He had just received the news. One of their branches had been infiltrated by an evil cultivator. The casualties were severe. The vitality of heaven and earth had begun to recover. Hidden cult organizations lurking in the shadows had risen once again. They had even launched a surprise attack on a special investigation division branch, resulting in devastating casualties at the branch. Upon hearing this news, Wang Sheng was deeply shaken. Immediately boarded a plane to provide support. On the plane, Wang Sheng learned from Muyu. That group of rogue cultivators belonged to the martial god sect. They had already escaped to an island, relying on the fact that they held hundreds of hostages. They declared they wanted to discuss the order of the cultivation world with the authorities. Moreover, they demanded that Wang Sheng and his master's wife join the negotiations. Otherwise, they would kill one hostage every 3 minutes. They had already started harming the hostages. Upon learning the details of the situation, Wang Sheng asked his senior sister to help him apply the ointment. He immediately responded, "I understand now. The woodshade deity met their end by my hand. They summoned me to go over. It's nothing more than seeking revenge and establishing dominance. In a moment, I'll make sure to protect the mistress. And buy us some time. You all should act accordingly when you see the opportunity." At the same time, Wang Sheng secretly contemplated in his heart, if the sacred flame bearers were merely a disturbance, this time it is pure evil. The provocation against the authorities. The martial god cult acts so recklessly. No wonder in my previous life I was taken down in one swift move. Then Wang Sheng explained to senior sister that I just needed to fully dissolve the medicinal power. Your feet will heal on their own. Stay at the camp and wait for me later. You don't need to take action on this matter. However, the senior sister immediately stood up. Word by word, he stated with determination, I will stay with you. Judging by his expression, he appeared extremely resolute. Left without a choice, Wang Sheng reluctantly agreed. Not long after, the group arrived at the Special Investigation Unit's location to meet with the teacher's wife. They inquired about the current situation. The teacher's wife expressed that the situation was not very favorable. The other side had several subordinates at the pseudo-core level. In addition, there were hundreds of demonic practitioners. Most importantly, they also held hostages in their hands. We should tread carefully and not act recklessly. Hearing this, Mr. Wang suggested that I go by myself. At the very least, I have some cultivation skills. I can think of a way to stall for some time. But the teacher's wife patted his shoulder and persuaded him calmly. This isn't the time to let emotions take over. The other side demands that the two of us go together. Besides, if my life can secure the safety of 2 more hostages, then my sacrifice would be meaningful. At that moment, a team member hurriedly ran in to report. The team leader of the communications group reminisced. The rogue cultivator agreed to our video call. The master's wife nodded approvingly after hearing this. I really want to see what kind of tricks the other side is planning. According to the information held by the Special Investigation Unit, the identity of the person currently speaking with them has been confirmed. It is none other than the leader of the martial god sect, Shui Roshan. As soon as the video call connected, Shui Roshan on the other side let out a strange, repeated laugh. Sure enough, they didn't just grab someone random to fool me. The chieftain of the Stone Forest clan. This old woman was just thinking, if the person who appeared in the video wasn't you, we would have killed everyone here, and then made a clean getaway. Hearing this statement, the 3 of Wang Sheng were startled. But the mistress remained calm and composed as she returned. If you truly had the confidence to face me, why would you need to hold innocent people hostage? At that moment, the water deity in the video let out another eerie laugh. You are mistaken. Humans are inherently burdened with sin, and those who died by my hands simply met the fate that was destined for them. Seeing the other party show such disregard for life, the mistress chose to remain silent. She directly stated that she would arrive in 3 hours, but demanded they stop senselessly killing innocent people. The water deity smiled and agreed to her request, but hinted that the agreement might not hold after 3 hours. If you don't show up, I will kill these people one by one right in front of you. One by one, I will take their lives. Now I demand to see the reckless person, the sword cultivator who dared to kill my sworn brother. Hearing this, Wang Sheng decisively stepped forward and said, I am here. I am the one who killed that vile scoundrel. If you want revenge, come for me. Why take it out on others? Besides, I not only have courage, a kinder heart. In a moment, I'll perform a ritual for free for the senior. What do you think? Hearing this, the water spirit laughed recklessly again, quite bold. If it weren't for you killing my 4th brother, I truly wouldn't have had the heart to destroy you like this. If you're afraid, then simply don't come. I will come looking for you myself in the future. However, Wang Sheng nonchalantly scratched his ear as if he couldn't care less. Fear isn't quite the right word for it. Should I go over empty-handed? Or should I tie my hands up? After all, I am a sword cultivator. If I accidentally hurt the senior, that senior probably wouldn't have the face to remain in the cultivation world anymore. As soon as these words were spoken, they instantly provoked Shui Roshan's fury, then burst out into hearty laughter. A mere youngster with little experience. Could it be that you only know how to win arguments with words? Don't tell me you brought your sword with you. Even if you brought along these 2 by your side, this old woman has nothing to fear. Upon hearing these words, both Flying Chain and senior sister stepped forward immediately. Let out a cold snort. Flying Chain went a step further and introduced himself directly. The sword sect sends out its flying chains. Soon, I will surely witness your impressive skills. However, the water spirit god refrained from saying more, leaving behind only one sentence, 3 hours from now. If you do not appear before me within that time, this island will fall to ruin today. Lives will be lost, and the mundane world will face destruction. How dare ordinary mortals interfere in the affairs of the cultivation world? They are simply inviting humiliation upon themselves. With that, the video call was abruptly terminated. Fei Lian gave Wang Sheng a thumbs up. Fei Yu's tactic of using reverse psychology worked pretty well. Wang Sheng scratched his head a little sheepishly. It was also thanks to the Taoist master's quick response that the number of people allowed on the island was increased to 4. At that moment, the master's wife coughed twice to remind everyone to get ready. Earlier, he had poured an extra half-hour of effort into it, which was sufficient for the combat team and the various major sects staying in the city. The dojo was blown up. Hearing this, Fei Lian seemed a bit puzzled. The combat readiness team consists of major sects. Aren't there several senior experts at the pseudo-core stage? Are these evil cultivators out of their minds? They walked straight into the line of fire. Wang Sheng explained. Those seniors came here earlier. They were just attending some kind of exchange event, and happened to run into this incident. That being said, if we launch a surprise attack with skilled experts, is there any chance of succeeding? Fei Lian let out a sigh. Even a golden core expert probably cannot guarantee to instantly overpower too many pseudo-core stage cultivators, not to mention advancing to the golden core stage at this moment. How extraordinary must their Tao comprehension be? Wang Sheng gave an awkward smile. The Taoist priest Fei Lianzi was right. It was indeed naive of me. Yet deep down, I was thinking, we do have a golden core cultivator on our side, but he probably won't make it here in time. Meanwhile, on the unnamed peak of Zhongnan Mountain, Uncle Jingyun and the junior sister were guarding the cave entrance, getting ready to start a fire and prepare a meal, when they suddenly received a message from Wang Sheng. Uncle Jingyun immediately realized something was wrong. Isn't the martial god sect that sect of rogue cultivators? Doesn't that mean Feiyu and Buyu are in danger? At this moment, a voice came from within the cave. It was Qing Lianzi. Smells so good, junior sister. Have you already prepared the meal for me? Then, suddenly, Qing Lianzi, who had been in seclusion for several days, finally emerged. At this point, his entire appearance was tattered and disheveled. Yawning, he stepped out of the cave. And there, he saw the junior sister by the campfire. The younger sister instinctively assumed it was a new disciple recently taken in by Jingyun. But when he took a closer look, the person before him turned out to be the one he had been thinking about for years. The one who had been on his mind and in his heart all this time. Their image overlapped with that of the person he longed for. So Qing Lianzi immediately approached him and asked excitedly, "Are you Xiao Wan?" The junior sister didn't react immediately. She stood frozen in place. Qing Lianzi looked at the junior sister, who remained motionless in place. Lowering her head quietly, she said, "Xiaowen, I am your father. You probably haven't met me before. Let me tidy myself up first. I'll come see you once I'm more presentable." With that, Qing Lianzi turned around, ready to freshen up. But Gingyun informed her senior brother, "I'm afraid you won't have the time to spend with Xiaowen right now. Feiyu, Buyu, and Sister Lin are in trouble." Upon hearing this, the father and daughter were both startled. At this moment, over on Wang Sheng's side, several helicopters were landing. Everyone had gathered together. Now, not only did they have the advisors from the full of 3 sects lending their support, but 2 instructors from the special investigation team had joined as well. The one on the left is Yen Jiangnan, a rogue cultivator. The one on the right is Zhang Ziquang from Mount Longhu, Wang Sheng. It was clear to see. These training officers appear to all be cultivators at the pseudo-core stage. Suddenly, Yen Jiangnan walked over. He smiled and greeted Wang Sheng. "You must be Feiyu. The plan is straightforward. You will go to the arranged meeting and simply draw the other party's attention. Rest assured, we will be protecting you from the shadows." Wang Sheng and his senior sister quickly cupped their hands in salute. "In that case, we thank you, esteemed seniors." At that moment, Yen Jiangnan took the sword off his back and handed it over to Wang Sheng, indicating his goodwill as part of Feiyu. "I heard your previous sword got destroyed, so I'm giving this one to you." Wang Sheng quickly waved his hands and said, "Senior, this is far too generous." But Yen Jiangnan paid no attention to his protests and directly forced the sword into his hands, patting him on the shoulder with a grin and saying, "Just take it. This is a token of my regard. Otherwise, that guy Qing Yanzi would definitely find some excuse to slack off and mess around with me again." When Wang Sheng heard this, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth and had no choice but to accept it and thank the senior. At the same time, he thought to himself, It seems this senior is also an old acquaintance of my master. Besides the 3 grandmasters joining forces, there are also 2 instructors at the Void Core stage, along with the fully equipped repair and police unit ready for action. With such an impressive lineup, at the agreed upon time, Wang Shang and the master's wife boarded the speedboat as planned to head to the island. On the way, the master's wife went over the battle plan once more. The flying fish will draw the attention of the evil cultivators at the false core stage. Once they are lured over, the combat team will launch a surprise attack from 3 other directions, rescuing the hostages as quickly as possible, though it feels a bit challenging. But soon, it's better to try to attract the dark cultivators to our side. Wang Shang nodded his head, signaling that he understood. We might be able to buy ourselves some extra time later, even if it's just a little more time. Wen Yanfei seemed a bit worried. If we directly kill the evil cultivator later, will it provoke their anger? Wang Shang steered the speedboat and looked ahead. They had mentioned before, matters of the cultivation world should be resolved by cultivators. The less we seem to care about the hostages, the safer they will be. We are about to dock. Stick to the plan. After reaching the shore, Wang Shang and his companions heard a sinister, eerie laugh. Kid, you're the one who killed Elder Muing of our martial god sect, aren't you? Just as expected. The cult of the martial god had long stationed numerous evil cultivators here waiting for them. However, Wang Shang merely unsheathed his sword and said with a grin, "What if it's me?" Before the evil cultivator on the other side could finish their arrogant words, Wang Shang instantly swung his sword, sending out a surge of sword energy, leaving him no chance to speak another word ever again. Then, holding his sword, he coldly said, "Now tell me. Matters of the cultivation world should be resolved by cultivators. I am here now. Are you still going to threaten me by involving ordinary people? If you're going to kill me, just do it. After all, I'm here today to rid the world of evil and uphold justice. If I let you go, who knows how many more people will suffer because of you." At that moment, a voice suddenly came from the forest behind the dark cultivator. "To all disciples of the sect, anyone who kills this person will be rewarded with 10 years of cultivation techniques and 3 secret methods. Eliminate these 3 individuals. Bring the chief of the spirit clan to the island." Upon hearing these words, the demonic cultivators became as energized as if they were injected with adrenaline, and lunged toward Wang Shang. But Wang Shang merely responded with a faint smile, then lightly tapped his toes and unleashed countless sword auras, effortlessly cutting through them as if slicing through vegetables. He swiftly eliminated all the demonic cultivators who charged at him. In just an instant, he had taken care of more than 10 demonic cultivators. Witnessing this scene, even the onlooking Fei Lianzi and senior sister were somewhat startled. They hadn't expected that once Fei Yu made up his mind, he could be so terrifying. Just by looking at this sight, it's hard to tell who the helpless mortal is, and who the bloodthirsty demonic cultivator is. At this moment, one of the demonic cultivators in the forest finally couldn't bear it anymore. With a loud shout, he charged forward, intending to join forces to kill Wang Shang. Share the credit equally. Wang Shang noticed the situation. He understood that the other party had already fallen into the trap. What they needed to do next was to gradually increase their side's advantage and lure out more evil cultivators. Then, Fei Lian also used sword control techniques to join the battle, and instantly eliminated 2 evil cultivators. Wang Shang exchanged a glance with him, then turned his gaze toward the forest ahead, immediately decided to charge in and start a fight. However, just as the 2 were battling the evil cultivators, a sudden command from the headset instructed them to retreat at once. To follow the order. A pair of experts has headed in the direction where you are. The opponent at the false core stage hasn't made a move yet. Focus on protecting yourselves first. If they are truly determined to hold on to the hostages, we will immediately launch a full-scale attack. Wang Shang and Fei Lian have received their orders. He quickly returned to the seaside to reunite with his senior sister. At the same time, Wang Shang also advised his senior sister not to stay behind later. The senior sister nodded in agreement. She accepted the suggestion. Sure enough, it wasn't long before more evil cultivators came rushing out of the forest. The flying chain immediately warned Wang Shang to stay alert. These were all genuine cultivators at the nascent soul stage. Each of them was shrouded in ominous energy. Some of them seemed to have truly practiced demonic arts. At that moment, the senior sister placed her hands over her chest. Then she unleashed the power of yin and yang energy. The vast force merged into one. The yin-yang vast energy formation activated. The technique was initiated instantly. A vortex of energy immediately took shape, sweeping numerous evil cultivators into its core. Wang Shang and Fei Lianzi exchanged a glance. Without hesitation, they began working together to eliminate the evil cultivators. Realizing they were no match, the evil cultivators prepared to retreat. But at this moment, it was already too late. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in this place had already been disturbed by the senior sisters' yin and yang energies, making it impossible for them to muster even a trace of their strength, leaving them as helpless as lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Meanwhile, deep within the island, the high-ranking members of the martial god sect were gathered here. The sect leader, Shui Yushin, spoke coldly. These useless individuals can't even handle a few youngsters. Why don't we join forces together to capture that Qi Ling, and then make a swift escape? But as soon as the suggestion was made, someone immediately raised a question. It's easy for us to leave, but what about the disciples? Shui Rou leaped directly onto Xian Taishan, and said with a smile that after capturing Qi Ling, we would escape right away. Let them handle drawing the attention of the officers and soldiers. A time of chaos is approaching. With your strength, do you still worry about not being able to recruit followers? At this moment, Wang Shang and the other two were still in the formation, killing the evil cultivators. The few remaining evil cultivators hiding in the forest, seeing how formidable these three were, immediately decided to turn around and flee. But before they could even make a move, a skull suddenly flew out from deep within the forest. In an instant, she appeared right in front of her senior sister. Fortunately, Wang Shang showed up just in time. With a single strike, he slashed at the skeleton. Only then did he barely manage to block it. He then noticed the person who had arrived. Wang Shang mocked directly, asking if they had any sense of shame left to deal with the three of us at the formation establishment stage. Is it really necessary to use for continuation pills? The water spirit sneered and said, Kid, today, you will meet your end here. I declare that tonight marks the moment of your triumphant fame. Capture Qi Ling at all costs. As for the others, eliminate them all. With a single command from the water-soft deity, all the demonic cultivators seemed to lose their minds, and charged madly toward Wang Shang and the others. Meanwhile, the rescue team had reached Mistress' side, and had already set off toward the center of the island. The second phase of the operation could now begin. He immediately spoke up, instructing everyone to take action. As soon as the words were uttered, a towering column of water shot up behind the mistress. Four experts at the pseudocore stage appeared before everyone in an instant. Water Roshan instantly realized that she had fallen into a trap. She cursed Wang Shang furiously. Yet before she could finish her sentence, Yan Zhangnan had already swung his sword toward her. Strategy and deception are never off limits for rogue cultivators. Yan Zhangnan was ready to experience Water Roshan's renowned skills firsthand. The Watersoft deity exchanged only one move with Yan Zhangnan, and immediately realized that Yan Zhangnan's prowess was on par with his own, making it impossible to shake him off in a short time. So he decisively commanded the Dark Iron deity to capture the leader first, telling him to quickly seize Qi Ling. Seeing the Dark Iron deity approaching in their direction, Wang Shang and Fei Lianzi instantly gripped their swords, ready for battle. But to their surprise, their senior sister suddenly grabbed their shoulders and effortlessly tossed them behind her like they were little chicks. Standing alone, facing the towering figure of the Xian Iron deity, the Xian Iron deity gazed at the senior sister. Speaking coldly, he said, "You are strong, but you are merely at the embryo formation stage. You cannot withstand a void core attack. Today, you must die." With those words spoken, the Xian Iron deity charged directly toward the senior sister. The senior sister showed no fear at all. She unleashed the power of the yin-yang two instruments technique. The balance of yin and yang follows the will. The hand controls the surrounding space. Faced with the attacks from Xian Iron God, who wields immense strength, the senior sister countered strength with gentleness, effortlessly neutralizing the force, then delivered a strike to Xian Iron God's chest, forcing him to take a step back. But at that moment, a shadow appeared, silently approaching the senior master's back. Fortunately, Wang Shang noticed just in time, with a single slash of the sword. However, this person's level was clearly above Wang Shang's. With just a casual wave of his hand, he effortlessly blocked Wang Shang's strike. and even managed to leave a cut on Wang Sheng's face. Wang Sheng quickly unleashed a burst of sword energy and retreated to create some distance. Noticing the situation, Fei Lian made a decisive choice. He instructed Wang Sheng to take the master's wife and leave first, while he stayed behind to hold them off. Wang Sheng didn't hesitate. He hoisted the master's wife onto his shoulders and ran straight into the woods. Meanwhile, the commotion over there caught Shui Roshan's attention. He thought to himself that the third brother had actually failed, but the opponents were merely at the core formation stage. As long as he stalled for a little while longer, he was confident he could capture Qi Ling. Right now, he needed to unsettle these people's minds, to buy some time for the third brother. At that moment, Shui Roshan shouted loudly about the martial god sect. Followers, heed my command. Eliminate all those mortals. Spare no one. But just as he finished speaking, a sudden rush of footsteps came from a distance. Immediately after, a report was relayed from the Special Operations Team. All hostages on the island have been successfully rescued. Shui Roshan and his companions were instantly thrown into a panic. Meanwhile, others were hurrying over. It officially marked the beginning of the plan's second phase. Taking into account the combined combat strength, the goal was to completely annihilate the Dark Cultivators. As for Wang Sheng's situation, after making sure his master's wife was settled, he removed the shamanic spirit from his back and prepared to return to assist. At that moment, the person who had just fought against the flying chains unexpectedly used a controlling killing technique, which trapped the flying sword of the flying chains. The flying chains were no longer attached to the flying sword. Most of his strength had been drained. He had no choice but to retreat in haste. Fortunately, at that moment, Wang Sheng finally arrived with Wuling in hand to offer support. With one swift motion, he thrust his sword toward the killer. But, unexpectedly, the opponent chose that moment to condense a suit of armor out of sand and stones. What's more, he caught Wuling with just one hand, mocking that the Wudong 7-star sword was nothing special after all. But before he could finish his words, he was immediately humiliated. Wang Sheng channeled his true essence and exerted force to break through the barrier, letting out a miserable scream. Yet this completely provoked the other party, shouting furiously for him to get out of the way. Then unleashed the formidable true essence of the Void Core realm, blasting Wang Sheng away. As Wang Sheng gradually descended to the ground, spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, noticed Wang Sheng was injured. The senior sister in the midst of fighting immediately got distracted. Wang Sheng quickly shouted to his senior sister, "I'm fine, just focus on the fight." After hearing this, the senior sister turned around and became serious. The killer, due to that previous strike, had already been completely enraged, and yelled that he would kill Wang. Fortunately, he was still alive. The Special Operations Team had already surrounded the area. Now Wang Sheng and Fei Lianzi just needed to join forces to hold him down. Just don't let him escape, and that would be enough. It didn't take long. The Special Operations Team closed in on them. They indicated that they would take over from here, suggesting Wang Sheng should go and take a rest. Shui Ro noticed that the situation had turned hopeless, and immediately called for Xian Taishan to retreat. Unexpectedly, with this leap of his, he landed right onto a Tai Chi formation. Not far away, the senior sister waved her hand, instantly immobilizing him within the formation, leaving him unable to move. Yan Zhangnan seized the opportunity, leaping into the air with precision, and thrust his sword straight toward Shui Roshan, successfully striking her down with a single blow. The grand scheme of Shui Roshan Fu Pearl is already set in stone. The remaining demonic cultivators no longer have the strength to resist. As for the other leaders, they were subdued under the combined efforts of the senior experts. Among them, the Xian Iron God, who was surrounded by 7 or 8 instructors, met an especially tragic end. His entire skeleton was brutally shattered while he was still alive. His protective aura was completely broken. On another front, during the rescue ambush, a master at the Sudan realm paved the way. All the hostages were successfully rescued, and with the arrival of the emergency response team, the aftermath was handled in an orderly manner. As for Wang Sheng, he sat by the seaside, eyes closed, leaning against his senior sister. At that moment, the master's wife approached. She asked Wang Sheng if he wanted to stay with the special investigation team. After all, Yan Zhangnan and his team mainly focused on guarding the border. The investigation team could use Wang Sheng's assistance. The senior sister glanced at Wang Sheng, She signaled for him to make the decision. Wang Sheng thought for a moment. Then he still said, "Madam, let's wait until we discuss this with Master before making a decision. Besides, I also promised Senior Fei Lianzi to visit the sword sect." Madam let out a long sigh of relief. She was just about to ask Wang Shem what kind of reward he wanted, when Yan Jiangnan and Zhang Ziquan walked toward them. So it turns out they came to recruit people too. They wanted to persuade Wang Sheng to join their combat preparation team. At that moment, the group suddenly noticed someone in the sky. They immediately became vigilant, shouted loudly, telling anyone below the Void Core stage to quickly step back. This is a master at the Golden Core stage. A powerful Golden Core expert suddenly descended from the heavens. Everyone assumed a defensive stance. The two instructors even directly ordered the missile to lock on target. But at that moment, Wang Sheng raised his hand. He gave an awkward smile. "The one up there seems to be my master." Then, a loud shout from Qing Lianzi echoed in midair. "Where are the demonic cultivators?" Wang Sheng quickly called out, "Master, the demonic cultivators have been completely annihilated. Why don't you come down first?" Qing Lianzi realized he had made the trip for nothing. It turned into an outright humble brag. The wicked forces seemed to have turned for the better. Little Xian, the modest scholar. "Are you all unharmed? You two have rather shallow cultivation levels. Do not cause unnecessary trouble for others." Upon hearing these words, Zhang Ziquan couldn't help but twitch at the corners of his mouth. Those two little ones still have low cultivation levels. Yan Jiangnan gave a slight smile. This statement actually makes a lot of sense. After all, their master is a formidable Golden Core expert. Then, he called out to King Lianzi in the sky, saying, "Brother Qinglian, why not come down for a word?" King Lianzi explained that he had arrived in a rush. His clothes were torn to shreds by the fierce wind, making it inconvenient for him to show himself. He suggested that if Wang Sheng and the other person had nothing urgent, they could come over and talk to him instead. Afterward, Wang Sheng and his senior sister went to pay their respects to their master. But upon seeing the master's appearance, Wang Sheng couldn't help but burst into laughter. At that moment, Qing Yanzi appeared with disheveled hair. His entire body was in tattered clothes. Not a single piece of fabric on him was intact. He looked completely like a beggar. At this point, Wang Sheng suddenly took off his own clothes and started walking toward Qing Yanzi, intending to give his clothes to his master to wear instead. "It's good to meet the master's wife." Who would have thought Qing Yanzi would cover his eyes and utter such audacious words? "You child, how could you have improper thoughts about your teacher? Your senior sister is so beautiful. How could you develop such a peculiar habit?" These words left Wang Sheng feeling utterly helpless. As expected, the master is still the master. But Wang Sheng still quickly took off his clothes, handed it over. The master must have met the junior sister by now. The wife, the junior sister's mother, is right here. Qing Yanzi sighed deeply and said, "So be it. Eventually, we are destined to meet. Let me change my clothes first. You all should step aside for a moment." Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng immediately told the senior sister to bring the wife over. Qing Lianzi quickly changed into fresh clothes as well, no longer looking as disheveled as before. After being apart for many years, the two finally met again. The master's wife still spoke with a cold expression. "I have plenty of work to do. If you have something to say, you can speak up, but I ask for your understanding." Before she could finish speaking, Qing Lianzi suddenly pulled her into his embrace. "You've been avoiding me for 20 years. It's been driving me to the brink of madness. I can't bear to lose you again." The master's wife was instantly captivated. Her gaze softened noticeably. "Back then, I left out of resentment. It truly was unfair to you. You don't need to treat me like this anymore. Besides, I don't have much energy right now to deal with matters outside of work." Qing Yanzi smiled faintly and said, "I understand. The special investigation team, is it? Are you still recruiting members now? I never want to part ways with you again. Besides, this could also secure some resources for Xiaosheng and the others." After the teacher's wife heard this, she immediately agreed without hesitation. "I'll offer you the highest level of treatment. You won't have to run errands. As for Xiaosheng and Xiaoshen, they will receive allocations of pills and snacks each month according to Yan Zhengnan standards. Every month, they will be provided with elixirs and snacks." At this moment, Qing Yanzi suddenly asked, "What about me?" Who would have expected the next moment? The master's wife grabbed his ear in one swift motion. "You're working for me for free. Qin Yanzi chuckled and said, yes, of course. What's wrong with working for my wife without pay? Watching as the master and his wife started playfully teasing each other, Wang Shang, hiding in the back, was completely stunned. And just like that, it was all settled. The master truly lives up to his name. But before he could even finish saying that, from behind came the voices of 3 curious onlookers. See, I told you so. Feather often calls the team leader for food. There must be some juicy gossip here with the mistress. Wow, the investigation team leader. A cultivator at the foundation establishment stage. Even this could be associated with the boundless celestial. This gossip is a ticking time bomb. Wang Shang felt a bit speechless seeing this. Are all of you really this idle? But perhaps this is for the best. The master's long-cherished wish has finally been fulfilled today. A few days later, after wrapping up matters with the martial god sect, Wang Shang followed Fei Lian to Mount Shu. This time, although he came under the pretense of assisting the sword sect, it was actually a crucial part of his cultivation journey. In his previous life, he had visited the sword sect several times in search of opportunities, driven by his quest for fortune and destiny. I just never expected that after being reborn, I would unexpectedly return here once again in the role of offering assistance. By the time the two arrived at Mount Shu, the Grand Elder of the sword sect had already been waiting for quite some time. He walked over and immediately started praising Wang Shang. So young in age, and yet possessing 2 distinct sword intents. Feathered Flight truly lives up to being a swordsmanship prodigy. Wang Shang quickly cupped his hands in respect and said, Senior, you flatter me. The dual aspects of sword intent within me. This was a gift from Master Yuan Pu. The Grand Elder was slightly surprised upon hearing this. Master Yuan Pu did not expect this. He had already reached such an understanding of the way of the sword, and could still pass on his knowledge to others. Fei Lian coughed twice, to remind the elder if it was time to discuss the main matter. The Grand Elder smiled and said there was no rush. We also need to make some preparations. Fei, you should rest for the night first. Let's wait until everything is properly prepared before discussing the trial ceremony. Therefore, Wang Shang was assigned to stay in a small courtyard. At this moment, he was cultivating in the courtyard. The Shushan sword sect uses swords as a means to pass on its teachings. This is distinctly different from Wodong. It seems it could also provide him with some guidance. As for the future,